The Runaway Bride of Gremory. Act 4, What We Carry Forward. Chapter 51. Hannah was 13 when she told them she wanted to attend the Underworld Academy. She said it at dinner, on a Thursday, in the direct way she said everything, with her full attention already given to the response she was anticipating. Sho was 7 and was eating with the focused efficiency of someone who had learned that if you finished quickly you could ask to be excused to go back to the thing you had been doing before dinner interrupted you, which in his current phase was building an extremely complicated model of the Eastern District's old quarter using small blocks and a great deal of architectural opinion. Issei set down his chopsticks. Rias looked at Hannah. Hannah waited. Tell me why, Rias said. Not the dismissive version of the question. The real one. Hannah had prepared for this. He could see the preparation in the way she was sitting, the slight forward lean that meant she had things to say and intended to say them in order. Because the curriculum that covers things I cannot get at Co or at any human institution, she said. The theoretical foundations of devil power structure, the history of the restructuring, comparative metaphysics across the 4 factions. She paused. And because I want to understand the world I am going to live in. All of it. Not just the parts that come to me through your work and through what you choose to tell us. The last part landed with the precision of something that had been thought about carefully, and said deliberately. Issei looked at Rias. Rias was looking at Hannah with the expression that appeared when she was fully engaged. You feel we have been selective, Rias said. Not dishonestly, Hannah said. But selectively. You protect us from things you think we are not ready for. Which is what parents do. She met Rias's eyes. I am ready for more of it. The academy is not a gentle institution, Rias said. The peerage system is embedded in how it functions. The social hierarchies there are real and can be unkind. I know, Hannah said. I have read about it. Reading about it and living inside it are different things, Rias said. Yes, Hannah said. That is why I need to go. So I can learn the difference. Sho had stopped eating and was watching the conversation with the bright-eyed attention he gave to things he found interesting. What does she mean about the peerage system? He asked. We will explain later, Issei said, which was what he said when the explanation was real and would be given, and just needed to wait for the right moment. Sho accepted this and returned to eating with renewed efficiency. Issei looked at his daughter. He thought about her at 8 in the kitchen asking for the whole story. He thought about her at 10 arguing with him about the ethics of rating game reform in a way that had required him to actually revise his position on one minor point. He thought about her at 12 writing a 7-page analysis of the covenant structures in the reform document for a school project that had been assigned a 2-page maximum, and the teacher's note that had come back saying simply, "This is too long," and also entirely correct. She was 13. She was not ready for everything. She was ready for more than they had been giving her. What research have you done? He asked. She produced a folded document from beside her plate. It was 3 pages of handwritten notes in her small precise script, covering curriculum comparisons, housing arrangements, faculty credentials, and a section labeled risks and how I intend to manage them. He took it. He read it. He passed it to Rias. Rias read it without expression. Then she looked at Hannah. You wrote a risk assessment, she said. Yes, Hannah said. At 13. I have been planning to ask since last spring, Hannah said. I wanted to have something real to show you. Not just the wanting. Rias looked at the document. She looked at Issei. He gave her the small nod that meant, I think we should take this seriously. We will discuss it, Rias said, and we will give you a real answer within the week. Not a deflection. An answer. Hannah nodded. She had expected this, he could tell. The week was acceptable to her. She had built it into the plan. Thank you, she said. Finish your dinner, he said. She finished her dinner. Sho asked to be excused and went back to his architectural project, and for a little while the kitchen was quiet in the particular way it was quiet when something large had just been said and was now being held by the people who needed to hold it. Later, after both children were in bed, Issei and Rias sat in the garden with tea and the night version of the Eastern District around them, the distant hum of the city's quieter frequencies, the old tree doing its slow dark thing against the sky. She is right, Rias said. Yes, he said. We have been protecting them from complexity, she said. Not entirely wrongly. but she is at the age where protection starts becoming limitation. The risk assessment was good, he said. It was better than good, Rias said. The section on social navigation strategies was more nuanced than anything I had at her age. She was quiet for a moment. She thought about it harder than we thought she would. She thinks about everything harder than we expect, he said. And then she surprises us by showing us the thinking. Rias looked at the tree. I did not like the academy when I was there, she said. The hierarchies were real. The pressures were real. You were there as Rias Gremory, heir to a great house, he said. She would go as something different. As the daughter of the reform architects, Rias said. Which is its own kind of weight. She knows that, he said. It was in the risk assessment. Section 3, paragraph 2. Rias was very still for a moment. Then she made a sound that was not quite a laugh but was close to one. She put it in the document, she said. She put everything in the document, he said. She is thorough. Rias set down her tea. She leaned back and looked at the sky, which in the underworld at night had its particular quality, not dark exactly, but deep, the light from distant sources doing something that human sky did not quite do. I want her to go, she said. And I am frightened of it. Both of those are true and both are correct, he said. And she is right that she is ready, she said. Yes, he said. Rias looked at the sky for a long time. We will say yes, she said. With conditions. Which she will accept because she anticipated them and has already thought about how to work within them. She wrote them in the document, he said. Section 4. Proposed conditions. Rias turned to look at him. She wrote the conditions she expected us to impose, he said. And then argued for each one being reasonable. There was a pause. Our daughter, Rias said, with the full weight of the words, the warm specific weight of them, is going to be remarkable. She already is, he said. Rias picked up her tea. She leaned against him, which was the evening version of them, the settled quiet version. He put his arm around her, and held her in the way that had become native to him over years of evenings exactly like this one. We did this, she said quietly. We did, he said. Not meaning the academy, or the decision. Meaning the daughter who wrote risk assessments at 13. Meaning the boy in the next room who named architectural styles before he could fully explain them. Meaning the life that had grown from a choice on an October morning, accumulating into this garden and this house and these people. We did, he said again. The night held them and the old tree held its dark shape against the sky, and inside the house 2 children were asleep in rooms full of the record of everything they had been given and everything they had grown into on their own. Tomorrow they would give their daughter an answer she had already more than earned. Tonight they held the weight of it together, which was the only right way to hold anything real. Chapter 52. The conditions were these: weekly contact, maintained on a schedule Hannah set rather than one imposed on her. Quarterly visits, 2 from Issei and Rias, 2 of Hannah's choosing, in either direction. An open door, meaning that if anything became untenable she could come home without it being considered failure. And one condition Issei added that was not in Hannah's projected list, which was that she find at least one person there who she could speak honestly to, not a political ally, not a strategic relationship, but someone actual. Hannah had looked at this last condition for a moment. You mean a friend, she said. I mean someone you can be honest with, he said. What you call that is up to you. She had accepted it. She had even, he thought, been quietly relieved by it, the way people were relieved when someone named something they had been carrying without words. She left in September. They drove her to the transit point together, all 4 of them, which meant Cho spent the journey telling Hannah his current theories about the Eastern District's 3rd century infrastructure, which she listened to with genuine attention even though she had heard the infrastructure theories before. This was one of the things about Hannah that he had always found remarkable. She did not pretend to listen. When she listened, she was actually there. At the transit point, Cho hugged her with the full body commitment of a 7-year-old who had not yet learned to modulate physical expression. You have to tell me everything, he said. Every week. I will tell you the parts that are useful to you, she said. And the interesting parts. Those are the same thing, he said. Usually, she agreed. She hugged Rias for a long time. He watched Rias hold her, the specific quality of the hold, not tight with anxiety but full with love, the kind of embrace that says, you are ready and I am letting you go because I know you are ready and also I will miss you every day. Then she hugged him. He held her and thought about the morning she had been born, the particular hour of it, the way the light had come into the room, the way Rias had looked at him over Hannah's head with an expression he had no word for except complete. He thought about her first word, which had been tree, said in the Eastern District Garden while pointing at the old tree, which they had taken as a sign without exactly knowing what it signified. He thought about her at 3 and 5 and 8 and the question in the kitchen and the risk assessment at 13, and now this, the transit point, the bags packed, the academy waiting. Weekly contact, he said. Your schedule. I know, she said. If it becomes too much, he said, you come home. I know, she said. But it won't. I know it won't, he said. I'm telling you anyway. She pulled back and looked at him. She had Rias's eyes, that particular winter sky color, but in them was something that was either of them, something that was entirely her own, a quality of looking that had arrived with her and grown into itself across 13 years. I will be fine, she said. I have been preparing. I know, he said. Go. She went. They stood at the transit point until she was through, and then the 4 of them were 3, and the 3 of them went home. Show was quiet in the car. He looked out the window at the passing district with the inward attention he brought to things he was processing. After a while he said, Is she going to change? Yes, Rias said. She will learn things and become more of herself. Will she still like my infrastructure theories? He said. She will like them even more, Issei said. Because she will understand more of what they connect to. Sho considered this. He appeared to find it acceptable. He returned to looking out the window. They arrived home and the house was quieter than it had been that morning and would be quieter than it had been for years. Not empty. Not wrong. Just different, the way all things that grew were different at each new stage. Rias stood in Hannah's doorway for a moment. He stood beside her. The room was tidy in Hannah's way, organized with a logic that was entirely her own, the books arranged by subject and then by the order in which she intended to return to them. The desk clear because she had taken what she needed and left what could wait. On the small shelf above the desk, she had left Gasper's drawings. All of them. Every accumulated drawing from every visit over years. She had taken copies, he knew, because he had seen her scanning them 2 weeks ago, but the originals she had left here. He stood looking at them. The summer sun and winter stars. The wedding. The garden. Hannah herself, at various ages, drawn by someone who had looked at her with the particular attention of someone who loved her. She had left them here on purpose. As a statement about what this place was. As a way of saying, this is home and I am coming back. He thought that was one of the finest things she had ever done. She will be all right, Rias said. Yes, he said. And we will be all right, she said. Yes, he said. And Sho will be all right. He has infrastructure theories, he said. He will be fine. Rias made the sound that was almost a laugh. They stood in the doorway a moment longer, and then they went to find Sho, who had already returned to his architectural project and was explaining something at length to no one in particular, the specific running commentary of a child deep in his own world. The house held them. The evening came in through the windows. Outside, the old tree was doing its late September thing, the leaves beginning to think about the change that was coming. Hannah was on her way to the academy. Everything was still in motion, still becoming, still exactly as it should be. Chapter 53. The first contact call came on a Sunday, 12 days after Hannah left, which was 9 days later than scheduled. Issei had not said anything about the delay. Rias had not said anything either. They had both pretended not to count the days, which meant they had both been counting the days. The call came in the evening. Hannah's face appeared in the projection with the particular quality of someone who had a great deal to report, and was deciding how to begin. I found the person, she said. Which person? He asked. The honest one, she said. Condition 5. He thought about the last condition, the one she had not put in her document. Already? He said. Her name is Syra, Hannah said. She is from a middle-tier family in the Southern Territories. She arrived at the academy expecting it to be one thing and discovered it was another. She was sitting alone in the library on the 3rd day writing what I recognized as a structural analysis of the social dynamics she had observed, and I sat down next to her and said, I am doing the same thing. Do you want to compare notes, Anne? Rias said. We compared notes, Hannah said. For 4 hours. She is extremely precise. She also noticed 3 things I had missed, and I noticed 2 she had missed, and we each found the other's observations useful. She sounds like a good match for you, Rias said. She is methodical and honest, and does not perform warmth she does not feel, Hannah said. Which I find restful. She paused. I think she might become a real friend. I am not declaring it yet. But the conditions are favorable. That is very you, Issei said. Hannah acknowledged this. How is Sho? He has added a secondary aqueduct system to the Eastern District model, he said. He has opinions about water distribution that he would like to share with you. Put him on, Hannah said. Sho came and talked for 11 minutes about water distribution. Hannah listened and asked 3 questions that were genuinely good, which Sho received with visible satisfaction. Then Sho went back to the model, and it was just the 3 of them again. The social hierarchies, Rias said, not as a question. Not as a worry. As an opening. Hannah recognized the opening. They are real, she said. I was prepared for them to be real, and I still found it somewhat jarring to encounter them directly. She paused. There are students who expect immediate deference based on house ranking. There are students who test new arrivals to establish where they fit in the existing structure. There are students who do either and simply proceed with their own concerns, who are my preferred people. How are you navigating it? Rias asked. Carefully, Hannah said. I am not performing deference I do not feel, because that would establish a false baseline and I would have to maintain it. I am also not being confrontational, because confrontation at this stage would create enemies before I understand the terrain. I am being neutral and observant and genuinely interested in the curriculum, which is actually very good. The curriculum is good? He said. The comparative metaphysics alone is worth the trip, she said with something that was almost enthusiasm. There is a professor named Yashima who teaches the history of the restructuring, and it is the first time I have encountered a teacher who is willing to tell the full version. Not the official version. The full version. He thought of the reform document. He thought of the 18 months of arbitration and the 47 pages and the vote. He thought about what it meant that a professor at the academy was teaching the full version now. I know Professor Yashima's work, Rias said. She testified at the 3rd arbitration hearing. She mentioned that, Hannah said. She mentioned you by name. She called what you did in the hearings a demonstration of principled argument, under structured pressure. Hannah paused. I did not tell her you were my mother. No? Rias said. Not yet, Hannah said. I want to earn my own standing first. Then I will tell her. She looked at them both through the projection. I am not embarrassed of where I come from. I am building something separate from it so that what I build has its own foundation. He looked at his daughter, 13 years old and 3 weeks into her first independent chapter, articulating something about identity and inheritance that took most people decades to understand. That is correct, Rias said quietly. I thought you might object, Hannah said. No, Rias said. It is exactly the right instinct. Hannah nodded, the small specific nod of someone who had hoped for a particular answer, and received it. They talked for another hour. She told them about the library, which was 4 stories and had a section of restricted texts that you could request access to with proper academic justification, and she had already submitted 2 requests. She told them about the dining arrangements, which were organized by house affiliation in ways that she found both anthropologically interesting and structurally inefficient. She told them about the sky over the academy campus at night, which was the deep underworld sky but from a different angle than home, a different arrangement of the distant light sources. It looks different, she said, but it still feels like the same sky. It is the same sky, he said. I know, she said. That is why it was reassuring. When the call ended, the projection closed and the room was the house again, the Eastern District house with the old tree outside and the evening that had deepened while they were talking. She is all right, Rias said. She is more than all right, he said. She found someone honest to talk to in 12 days, Rias said. Which is faster than I managed at the academy. How long did it take you? He asked. Rias was quiet for a moment. Almost a full year, she said. And even then I was not certain I had found honesty as much as I had found someone with aligned interests. He thought about that. He thought about Rias at 13 in an institution built on hierarchy, carrying a name that bent the shape of every room she entered, trying to find something real inside all of it. She has what you did not have yet, he said. What is that? She said. She already knows who she is, he said. You are still finding out. Rias was quiet. That is not a criticism of you, he said. Finding out who you are is what 13 is for. She had an advantage. What advantage? She said. He looked at her. Us, he said. The house. The garden. The conversations. All of it. He paused. She knew what honesty looked like before she had to find it somewhere else. Rias held this for a moment. Then she took his hand in the way she took it when something had landed exactly right. Us, she said. Us, he said. The house held the evening, and the old tree held its first autumn color against the dark, and somewhere in the academy in the underworld, their daughter was probably making additional notes on the social dynamics, and asking Syra to compare analyses. He thought that was very fine. Chapter 54. The Reform Committee had evolved. In the years since the original document, the work had moved through its phases the way institutional change moved, in steps that were never as clean as the planning had suggested they would be, with reversals and negotiations and the particular friction of trying to alter systems that had been in place for centuries and that many people, even people of good faith, had organized their lives around. But it had moved. The rating game reforms had passed in their modified form, establishing the consent protocols and the exit provisions, and the independent oversight body that Issei had argued for in the original 30-page document. The implementation had taken 3 additional years and had required 2 supplemental arbitration rounds, but it had held. The faction communication frameworks had been built, slowly, through a series of small agreements and precedents that accumulated into something that could almost be called a structure. The angel and fallen angel liaisons who had seemed like an impossibility in the first hearings had become routine. The quarterly joint sessions were logged and referenced in academic texts now, which meant they had passed from proposal into fact. And then there was the new work. Issei sat in his office in the Eastern District on a Wednesday morning with a draft document in front of him that was 32 pages long, and concerned a subject he had been circling for 4 years without knowing how to begin. The question of what it meant for half-devil children to exist in both worlds simultaneously. He had been avoiding the word half-devil in his notes. It was imprecise and carried connotations that were not useful. The accurate term, which the committee had been working toward, was bicultural heritage, which was longer but said the real thing. Hannah and Sho were not alone. There were others like them, many more than people generally discussed, children born to parents of mixed supernatural heritage, or to devil parents living partly in human society, or to human parents who had reincarnated into devil households and then built families. The existing frameworks said almost nothing about their status, their rights, their education, or the systems that were supposed to serve them. The existing frameworks had been written in a time when this category of person was rare enough to be handled as an exception. That time had passed. He looked at the 32 pages. He thought about Hannah at the academy, navigating the hierarchies with her structural analysis and her honest friend. He thought about Sho at 7 in his room building models of things he understood intuitively but did not yet have all the language for, living with 1 foot in the human school in the district and 1 foot in the underworld whenever they went home to the estate. He had not started this document because of them, not exactly, but he could not pretend they had not shaped the urgency of it. There was a knock at the office door. "Come in," he said. The door opened and Sona Citri entered, which was not unexpected. She had been his primary co-author on the reform document, and had been a consistent presence in the committee work ever since. She had her own office 3 floors up in the same building, which was one of the things that had come out of the coalition work, a shared institutional space for the reform architects that was not under any single house's authority. She sat in the chair across from his desk and looked at the document. "You sent it last night," she said. "I wanted your read," he said. "I read it twice," she said. He waited. "The framework section is strong," she said. "The historical documentation is thorough. The proposed rights architecture is sound but will face significant opposition from the houses who benefit from the current ambiguity." "I know," he said. "The section on educational access is the most politically exposed," she said. The Academy will not accept it without a significant negotiation process. I know, he said. Hannah is at the Academy, she said. Not as a challenge. Just naming the thing. Yes, he said. The committee will note that, she said. They will note it whether I present the document or not, he said. Because the problem is real whether my daughter experiences it or not. I would rather be the one who acknowledges the connection directly than pretend it does not exist and have someone else name it as a conflict. Sona looked at him. That is the correct approach, she said. I know, he said. I have been doing this for 12 years. You have, she said. And you are still occasionally surprised when the correct approach is also the harder one. He acknowledged this. She was right. He had known the right move before she said it. He had needed someone to confirm it anyway. Rias has seen it? She said. She co-wrote the educational access section, he said. Sona nodded. That was also correct. Rias had become the more visible public voice of the reform work in recent years, had written the version of the 30-page argument that the general population could read, had been the one who testified at the second and fourth hearings in ways that the committee judged most effective. She had made herself accessible to the work in ways that went beyond what her original role had required. He had watched her do this over years and it had not surprised him. She was good at it in the way that people were good at things that were native to them, not learned exactly but found, the thing you were always going to be once you had the room to become it. When do you want to present it? Sona said. Spring session, he said. That gives us the winter to circulate it informally and understand where the resistance will come from before we formalize. And to prepare Hannah, Sona said. He looked at her. She will be named in the response, Sona said. Someone will use her as an argument against the document. As evidence of conflict of interest or of political maneuvering. You know this. Yes, he said. She needs to be prepared for it, Sona said. Not to defend herself. But to have thought through her own position on it before someone else defines it for her. He thought about Hannah's risk assessments. He thought about her section on social navigation strategies. He thought about 13 years of a girl who had always wanted the whole story. She will be fine, he said. She will probably have already written the analysis of her own position before I tell her to. Sona was quiet for a moment. You are proud of her, she said. Yes, he said. He did not see any reason to modulate this. Good, Sona said. Hold on to that. She stood. The document is ready. Circulate it to the inner committee this week. I will prepare the response framework. She went to the door. She stopped. Issei, she said. Yes. This one is the right fight, she said. The rating game reform was necessary, and it was important. This is necessary, and it is more important. He looked at her. Because it is about the future, she said. Not correcting what was. Building what should be. She left. He sat with the document in the morning quiet of his office. 32 pages. The history of something that had not been named yet. The beginning of an argument for something that should have been obvious for a long time, and was not. He thought about the 30-page document he had written at 24 with Sona at the table and Rias's voice in the background, about the first drafts and the revisions and the moment it had become something real. He thought about how that had felt. The specific gravity of it. He felt something similar now, but steadier. The weight without the fear. The urgency without the desperation. 12 years of this work had given him that. The knowledge that hard things were possible. The knowledge that the argument, made well and made honestly, had a chance. He picked up the document. He began the next revision. Outside, the Eastern District moved through its Wednesday morning, unhurried, the old quarter streets doing their patient thing, holding the shape of everything that had been built there, and everything that was still being built. Chapter 55. Surzex came for dinner in November, which he did twice a year, and which was always a specific kind of evening. He arrived without Grafia, who was managing an issue in the Eastern Territories, and without the formal weight of his title, which he was capable of setting down when the occasion called for it. He arrived as he always did for these dinners, in ordinary clothes and with the particular quality of someone who was genuinely glad to be here, which Issei had spent years learning to distinguish from the diplomatic version of gladness that Surzex wore in official contexts. Sho was still awake when Surzex arrived, which was because Sho had argued that he was 8 now and 8 was old enough to stay up for the important dinners, and because the argument had been reasonable enough that neither Issei nor Rias had found a good rebuttal. Sho had been waiting by the door with the energy of someone who had been waiting for a while and did not want it to show that he had been waiting. Sho, Sirzex said. Uncle Sirzex, Sho said. Then, immediately, I have updated the aqueduct model. The secondary distribution channels now account for seasonal pressure variance. Do you want to see it before dinner? I absolutely want to see it before dinner, Sirzex said. They went to look at the model. Issei followed at a distance, and watched his brother-in-law crouch on the floor of Sho's room examining the small block structures with the same focused attention he gave to political briefings, asking questions that were genuinely good, receiving Sho's answers with the appreciation of someone who recognized precision. It was one of the things Issei had come to understand about Sirzex across years of knowing him, not as a title but as a person. His attention was real. When he gave it, it was complete. It was the same quality that Hannah had identified in Syra as something she valued, and he thought it ran in the family. He thought about that family. The specific shape this one had taken. Rias had cooked. She had become a very good cook across the years of practicing, which she had done with the determination she brought to things she had decided mattered. The dinner was the kind of meal that required real attention, not elaborate but considered, and it came out exactly right. They ate. Sho held court for the first 20 minutes, explaining the seasonal pressure variance theory in detail, and Sirzex asked follow-up questions, and Rias and Issei ate and listened and exchanged the occasional glance that was the private language of parents watching a child be entirely himself in good company. When Sho finally wound down, Rias sent him to bed with the firmness that admitted no argument, and he went without excessive protest because he had gotten the important part of the evening and recognized it. Then it was the three of them, and the dinner shifted into its second version. The document, Sirzex said. Not an accusation. A statement. You have it, Issei said. Sona send it through the inner committee channels, Sirzex said. I have it. And? Rias said. Sirzex picked up his tea. He was quiet for a moment in the way he was quiet when he was deciding how to say something that required precision. The framework is necessary, he said. The historical documentation is thorough. The right's architecture will face resistance from 14 of the 23 houses in the current coalition. We know, Issei said. We are preparing the response framework. The educational access section will generate the most noise, Sirzex said. There are houses who have built significant advantage into the current ambiguity around bicultural heritage students at the academy. Making the ambiguity explicit, and then removing it, will be seen as an attack on that advantage. It is an attack on that advantage, Rias said. Not on the houses, but on the advantage. Yes. Sirzex looked at his sister. He looked at her with the particular quality he brought to moments when he saw her being entirely herself. You are ready to defend it, he said. We have been building toward it for 4 years, she said. I have been building toward it longer than that. He nodded slowly. There will be an attempt to use Hannah, he said. I want to tell you directly so it does not arrive through other channels first. There are 2 houses who have already, in preliminary conversations, raised the question of conflict of interest. Sona told me, Issei said. We are preparing Hannah. How is she? Sirzex said. And this was the real question underneath, the uncle version, not the political version. She found a good friend in the first 2 weeks, Issei said. She is auditing extra sessions on comparative metaphysics. She submitted 2 restricted text requests in her first month, and both were approved. Of course they were, Sirzex said, and his voice had the warmth of someone who was not surprised. She has not told her professor who her mother is, Rias said. She wants to build her own standing first. Sirzex was quiet for a moment. She is very much herself, he said. She is, Rias said. More every year. She gets the directness from you, Sirzex said to Rias. She gets the patience from him, Rias said, indicating Issei. She gets the risk assessments from no one I can identify, Issei said. That one appears to be entirely hers. Sirzex smiled, the real one, the one that appeared when he was not performing anything. 13 and writing risk assessments, he said. With a proposed conditions section, Issei said. Preemptive. Sirzex shook his head, The way people shook their heads at things that were both remarkable and entirely inevitable once they had arrived. She is going to be formidable, he said. She already is, Rias said. Same words Issei had used in the garden. True from both directions. They stayed at the table for another 2 hours. They talked about the document, and about the opposition, and about the strategy for the spring session, and they talked about Shou's aqueduct theories, and about Serzex's current work in the Eastern Territories, and about the temple garden in the 7th autumn, which Serzex had heard about from Grafia and had wanted the full version of. When Serzex finally left, it was late, and the house had the particular quiet of late evenings, deep and settled. Rias stood in the doorway watching him go, and then turned and came back inside and looked at Issei with the expression that meant a great deal was being thought. He will support it, she said. I know, he said. But he will not lead on it, she said. He will hold position behind us because the document needs to be seen as the work of the architects, not as the Lucifer's endorsement. I know, he said. That is the correct strategy. We are going to carry most of it ourselves, she said. Yes, he said. She was quiet for a moment. Not afraid. Taking the measure of it. Good, she said. He looked at her. Good? We have done it before, she said. And this one is the right fight. She looked at him directly, the full clear winter sky look. I want to carry it. He held her gaze. Then we carry it, he said. She nodded. She turned off the kitchen light. She went to check on Shou, who was asleep in his room with one hand still pointing in the direction of the model across the room, mid-gesture even in sleep, explaining to no one in particular about water distribution. Issei stood in the hallway for a moment, and looked at the house around him. The place they had chosen together. The life built from the chosen and the patient and the true. 32 pages on the table in his office waiting for the spring. The right fight, waiting to be fought. He turned off the hall light and went to bed. Chapter 56. Hannah came home for the winter break in December, and she was different and the same. The same in the essential things. The directness. The full attention she gave to whatever was in front of her. The way she listened to Shou's theories with genuine interest and asked the questions that moved them forward. The way she sat at the kitchen table with Rias in the mornings and talked, not about surface things but about whatever was actually occurring, which was one of the patterns that had developed between them so gradually that none of them had noticed it becoming a tradition. Different in the way people were different after 4 months of living inside a new world. She held herself with a new ease. Not performed confidence, not the armor version of assurance that people wore when they were uncertain but trying not to show it. Actual ease, the kind that came from having tested yourself in unfamiliar conditions and found that you held. She arrived on a Friday evening with a bag that was heavier than the one she had left with, which he did not mention but noticed. Books, probably. The restricted texts she had gained access to, or the ones she had found in the campus bookshops, the kind of accumulation that happened to people who found a library worth spending time in. Shou did not let her get through the door before beginning to tell her about the improvements to the aqueduct model. She listened to all of it at the door, bag on her shoulder, coat still on, because listening to Shou was not something that could be managed in pieces. When he finished she said, the pressure variance calculation is right but the overflow provision assumes a static seasonal pattern. What happens in a year with anomalous weather? Shou looked at the model. He looked back at her. He turned and went back to the room without a word, which meant he was already revising. She came inside, set down the bag, took off the coat. For months, Rias said from the kitchen doorway. For months, Hannah confirmed. She walked to her mother and hugged her with the same full commitment as before, no shorter, no more guarded. Whatever the academy had changed in her had not changed this. You are taller, Rias said. By 2 centimeters, Hannah said. I measured. Of course you did, Issei said. She looked at him. Then she crossed the room and hugged him and he held her and thought about the transit point and the particular quality of watching her walk through it. And now she was back and 2 centimeters taller, and easier in herself than she had been, and he felt the rightness of it in the specific way you felt the rightness of things you had trusted would work out, and had. They had dinner together, all 4, the kitchen full in the way it was full when no one was absent. Shou came back with a revised overflow provision and explained it at length, and Hannah listened again from the beginning because that was how she did things, all the way through, no skipping. After dinner, Hannah asked if she could talk with Issei alone, which she did occasionally, not often, when she had something that was specifically for him. They went to the garden. The December garden was cold and clear, the old tree bare now, its structure visible, the bones of it that the leaves covered in other seasons. He brought tea. They sat on the stone bench near the pond, and the night above them was the deep underworld dark, and the cold was the comfortable kind if you had a warm enough coat, which he had made sure to wear. The document, she said. You know about it, he said. Syra's family fits the bicultural heritage category, she said. She told me about it in October. That there was something being drafted. She paused. She did not know I was connected to it. Does she know now? He said. Yes, Hannah said. I told her after the inner committee circulation. I wanted her to hear it from me before she heard it from someone else. How did she take it? He said. She cried, Hannah said. Which surprised me. She is not someone who cries easily. But she said that her family had been waiting for someone to name this. That her mother had been trying to find words for it for years and had not known who to bring them to. He was quiet. They will use me, Hannah said. Not as a complaint. As a statement about the mechanics of the thing. Yes, he said. They will say conflict of interest. They will say the document was written to benefit my children. They will try to make the argument about us rather than about the framework. What do I do? She said. You do nothing publicly, he said. You exist. You go to your classes. You maintain your standing on its own terms. You do not engage with the people who use you because engaging validates the framing. And privately? She said. Privately you understand that the attack on you is evidence that the document is working, he said. When the opposition argues around the substance instead of engaging with it, they have already conceded the substance. She was quiet, absorbing this. You are not a political instrument, he said. You are a person. The document is about people. That is not a conflict. That is the point. She held her tea in both hands. The cold was doing its quiet December thing around them. Professor Yashima assigned the original reform document this term, she said. The 30-page one. In the contemporary frameworks class. He looked at her. I read it again, she said. The way you read something you know but have not read since you were a child. Seeing it differently. She paused. It is a good document. It is careful and precise, and it argues from principle without being abstract. It took a long time, he said. I know, she said. I did the reading about the process. She looked at him. How did you know it was going to work? He thought about this honestly. I did not know, he said. I thought the argument was right. I thought if you made the right argument well enough, in front of people who were capable of hearing it, there was a chance. He paused. That is still all I know. The chance is not certain. But the argument being right is the only foundation that holds. She looked at the bare tree. This one is the right argument too, she said. Yes, he said. Then it will have a chance, she said. Yes, he said. She looked at him, and he saw in her face something he recognized as the quality of someone who had decided something, not recently but over a long time, who had been arriving at a decision and had arrived. I want to work on it, she said. Not now. Not while I am at the academy as a student. But after. When I have my own standing, my own record. I want to be part of this work. He looked at his daughter. 13 years old. Already knowing the shape of the life she was going to build. Then you will be, he said. When you have your standing. When you are ready. I am not ready yet, she said. I know I am not ready yet. But I am becoming ready. Yes, he said. You are. They sat in the December garden for a little while longer, the tea cooling, the old tree bare and structural in the dark, the house warm behind them with the lights in the windows and Shou's voice audible through the glass explaining something to Rias about overflow provisions. He thought about the 1st October. He thought about a corridor and a window and a woman who had said, I am not going through with this. He thought about everything that had grown from that moment across the years and seasons. He thought his daughter was the finest thing in the accumulation of it. Her and her brother. The ongoing extraordinary fact of them. Come inside, he said. It is getting cold. 1 more minute, she said. He stayed 1 more minute. Then they went inside. Chapter 57. In January, Sona published a preface to the bicultural heritage document that was 7 pages and had been written without Issei knowing she was writing it. He found out when Rias came to the door of his study on a Tuesday morning with her tablet, and said, "Sona published something." He read it. The 7 pages were the personal version. Not the political version, not the framework version. The version written by someone who had watched what Issei and Rias had built from the beginning, who had made her own choices and built her own life in a different configuration, and who wanted to say clearly and on record what she believed the document represented. She wrote about the night in the raiding game arena. She wrote about watching from the adjacent room while the proceedings were broadcast, about the quality of what she had seen. She wrote about the months after, the conversations in the apartment, the reform document drafts on the kitchen table, the specific texture of 2 people building something out of the rubble of what had been arranged and failed. She wrote about Rias's testimony at the 3rd hearing. She wrote about Issei's floor argument at the 4th, which was the one that had changed the votes, the one he had prepared for 3 weeks and delivered in 40 minutes without notes. She wrote about what she had seen in both of those moments, which was people who had chosen the right thing and were doing it, and the specific quality that gave to the argument. And she wrote about the document now, the bicultural heritage framework, and she wrote that it was the natural continuation of everything that had come before it, not because of who the authors were but because of what it was. A real argument, made from principle, for people who had been invisible in the frameworks that were supposed to serve them. She wrote, "I have known these architects for 15 years. I have watched them work. I have disagreed with them on tactics on 14 occasions that I can identify, and I believe I was right on 6 of them and wrong on 8. What I have never doubted is that they are arguing for the right thing. Not for their family, not for their house, not for their political position. For the right thing." He read the 7 pages twice. He called Sona. "You could have told me you were writing it," he said. "No," she said. "If you had known, you would have tried to make it more measured. And it needed to not be measured. It needed to be exactly what it is." He thought about this. "Thank you," he said. "I have been wanting to write it for 3 years," she said. "The document gave me the occasion." A pause. "Also, I believed it. Everything in it." "I know," he said. "That is why it reads the way it does." After the call, he sat in his study for a long time looking at nothing in particular. Rias appeared in the doorway. "I talked to her," she said. "And?" he said. "She said she would do it again," Rias said. "Any time she had reason to." He thought about Sona at the table in the earliest days. The person who had been his first real ally in the reform work, who had challenged his thinking and sharpened his arguments, and occasionally told him he was wrong in ways that had made the argument better. 15 years, he said. 15 years, Rias agreed. She was right on 6 of the 14 disagreements, he said. Rias looked at him. "How did you calculate which 6? "I have been keeping track," he said. Rias was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I have a different count." "How many do you have her correct on?" he said. 9, she said. He considered this. "I may have been charitable to myself on a few of them," he said. "You were," she said. 7 and 9 is the range. Somewhere in there. He looked at the tablet with Sona's 7 pages on the screen. "She is going to matter more than she thinks she does," he said. "When this goes to the spring session. The preface will matter." "Yes," Rias said. "She knows that. She wrote it knowing that. She says she wrote it because she believed it," he said. "Both things are true," Rias said. "She believed it, and she knew it would matter, and she is not someone who separates those 2 things into a conflict." He looked at his wife. He thought about the version of Sona he had encountered at 23, the precise and somewhat guarded young woman who had sat across from him in a coalition meeting and challenged his framework with 3 questions that had not been unkind but had been very sharp. He thought about who she had become over 15 years and about the person who had written those 7 pages, the fullness of it. "We have good people around us," he said. "We have always had good people around us," Rias said. "We were lucky and we also chose well. We chose each other first," he said. She looked at him. The winter sky eyes. The real smile present. "We did," she said. And everything else followed from that. Chapter 58. Sho was 9 when he said he wanted to learn to cook. He announced this on a Saturday morning with the same declarative certainty he brought to his architectural theories, as if the wanting had been decided somewhere prior to the announcement, and what he was doing now was informing everyone of the conclusion. Rias said yes immediately. Issei thought about the months she had spent practicing eggs. He thought about the mornings she had not known he could hear, the quiet domestic repetition of someone learning a thing for the love of the thing and for the people who would eat what she made. He thought it was exactly right that this was where Sho went when he wanted to learn to cook. She started him with the same thing she had started herself with, which was eggs. Not because eggs were simple, which they were not, but because they were immediate and responsive and told you things about attention and heat and timing that applied to everything else. Sho took to it with the focus he gave to the model, which was complete and serious and did not rush. He produced a first attempt that was edible. A second that was improved. A third that was good. The fourth attempt he made for breakfast without being asked, early, because he had woken up and decided to practice, and he served them at the table with the expression of someone who had been tracking the variable and was ready to show the result. Rias ate them. Issei ate them. The heat was consistent throughout, Rias said. That is the hardest part. I timed it, Sho said. I found that the timing from the original instruction was off by approximately 40 seconds for our pan specifically. I adjusted. You modified the recipe for the equipment, she said. The recipe assumes a standard pan, he said. Our pan is different. You have to account for the equipment. Rias looked at him. She looked at Issei. She looked back at Sho. Yes, she said. That is correct. That is what a good cook does. Sho appeared satisfied. He ate his own eggs with the focus of someone verifying the result. Issei watched this and felt something that was a version of a thing he had felt many times across 9 years with this child, the specific warmth of watching someone who was exactly themselves. Sho was not Hana. He had her directness without her analytical armor, had her focus without her preemptive planning. Where Hana mapped the terrain before entering it, Sho entered the terrain and modified his approach in real time based on what he found. Both were correct ways to move through the world. They were different correct ways. He thought about Sho at 3 in the temple garden, pointing at the old tree. He thought about him at 5 naming architectural styles before he could explain why he recognized them. At 7 with the model. At 8 telling Surzex about pressure variance. Now at 9 adjusting a recipe for specific equipment, and framing it in terms of a principle. He was going to be extraordinary. He was already extraordinary. After breakfast, Sho asked if he could learn something harder next, and Rias said yes, and they spent the rest of the morning in the kitchen making a winter soup from scratch, which was a longer project and required several steps in the management of multiple things at once. Sho found the multiplicity interesting rather than overwhelming. He asked why each step mattered, not as a stalling question but as a genuine one, and Rias explained each time, and by the end of the soup he could have explained the whole process from memory, including the principles underlying each step. The soup was very good. Issei ate it and thought about a kitchen in an apartment in Tokyo, years ago, early in a life that was still being built from scratch. He thought about the first eggs and the months of practice, and the Tuesday morning of their first married day, and the market with the ceramic bowl. He thought about the line from that morning to this one. The distance traveled and the shape of the traveling. This is excellent, he said. Sho looked up. The broth could have been deeper if I had started the reduction 20 minutes earlier, he said. I did not account for the time correctly. Start earlier next time, Rias said. I will, he said, and he meant it as a commitment, not a pleasantry. Issei looked at his wife and his son across the table, the kitchen warm with the soup in the morning, and he thought he could have stayed in this moment for a very long time. He thought he was going to hold it carefully. Chapter 59. The spring session was scheduled for the 15th of April. In the weeks before it, the political temperature around the bicultural heritage document rose in the way that temperatures rose before things came to a head, not explosively but with a persistent increase that you felt in the quality of the communications you received and the conversations that happened in corridors after official meetings. There were 14 houses in active opposition. Of those 14, 6 were what Sona called principled opposition, meaning they had genuine philosophical objections to elements of the framework, and were engaging with the substance of the argument. 8 were what she called strategic opposition, meaning they were opposed because the document threatened specific advantages they currently held, and they were using whatever arguments came to hand rather than engaging with the substance. The 6 principled houses were manageable. The 8 strategic ones were the source of the attempts to use Hannah. There were 2 specific arguments being circulated. The first was that the document had been written to benefit the author's family, and therefore represented a conflict of interest that should disqualify it from formal consideration. The second was that a document authored by people of mixed backgrounds, including one who had originally entered Devil's Society through reincarnation rather than birth, could not objectively represent the interests of traditional Devil households. The second argument was the one that had teeth, because it was the one that could not be fully answered with evidence, only with argument. An argument required the other side to be listening. Issei sat with this for a long time. He had known from the beginning that this version of the opposition would come. He had known it because Sona had told him and because he had seen the same pattern in the rating game reform, where the final resistance had been not to the specific proposals but to the legitimacy of the people making them. If you could not win on substance, you attacked the right to speak. He had learned in that first campaign how to respond to this. Not by defending his right to speak. By speaking. By making the argument so thoroughly and so well that the argument itself answered the question of whether he had the right to make it. He went back to the document. He revised the introduction. He made it more precise, not softer, not more defensive, but more exact, each claim founded on evidence that was already in the document, and now better connected to the claim it supported. Rias revised the educational access section. She added a comparative analysis of 7 underworld institutions and their current written policies on bicultural heritage admissions, or rather their absence of written policies, which was itself an argument about what the absence of a policy produced in practice. She added testimony from 12 families, collected over 6 months, with names redacted but the patterns intact. The 12 testimonies were the most powerful part of the revised document. He had not fully understood how powerful until he read them in sequence. They were not dramatic. They were precise. They were people describing, with the specificity of those who had lived inside the experience, what it felt like to exist in a world that had no framework for you, that treated your existence as an edge case in other people's rules. He thought about Syra crying when Hannah told her the document existed. He thought about the word waiting. How long a person could wait for someone to name a thing before they stopped expecting anyone to name it. He sent the revised document to the inner committee. He sent a copy to Hannah with a note that said, "You may want to have read this before April. Not so you can argue about it. So you understand the whole of what we built." She responded the next day with 4 pages of specific observations about the educational access section, 3 of which were useful to the final version. He incorporated them. He did not tell anyone they had come from her. The 4th observation was not about the document's substance. It was a note at the end that said, "The testimony section is the most important part. The arguments matter, but the testimonies make it real. People who argue against a framework will eventually have to look at the people the framework is built for. That changes what they are doing." He read this several times. He thought his daughter had understood something about this work that had taken him years to understand. He thought she was going to be very good at it, when her time came. He wrote back, "You are right." "Thank you." She wrote back, "I know. See you in April." The spring session was 3 weeks away. He went back to the document, and read the testimony section from the beginning. He read it all the way through. He thought about what it meant to name something that had not been named. The specific act of it. The weight it carried. He thought about a corridor in a manor house on an October morning, a long time ago. He thought about someone who had said, "I do not want to disappear without you knowing why." He thought that was where all of it had begun. Was someone refusing to disappear into a framework that was not built for her? Was someone choosing instead? He closed the document. He went to find Rias. Chapter 60. Rias was in the garden. She was there often in the late afternoons, in the way she was often in the kitchen in the early mornings, the private version of herself that she had built the life around having access to. She was sitting on the stone bench near the pond with nothing in her hands, which meant she was thinking rather than reading or working. He sat beside her. She looked at him. She had known he was coming. She had been expecting this particular version of him, the one that appeared when the work had reached the place where it mattered most, and he needed to be with her rather than with the document. 3 weeks, she said. 3 weeks, he said. The testimony section, she said. Yes, he said. She looked at the garden. The spring version, which was his second favorite after autumn, the garden coming back into itself after the winter, the specific green that appeared when things had been bare and now were not. I have been thinking about the first year, she said. Not specifically. Generally. The texture of it. The apartment, he said. The dissolution, she said. The paperwork. The waiting. She paused. I was so frightened at the beginning and I was not showing it, and you were frightened and not showing it, and we were both so careful with each other. We were, he said. And then at some point we stopped being careful in that way, she said. And started being careful in the other way. The real way. The patient way, he said. Yes, she said. The patient way. She looked at the pond. I think about the person I was in that apartment in October, and I recognize her, but she is not quite me anymore. She was the version of me that was just becoming free. And now? He said. Now I am the version that knows what the freedom is for, she said. He thought about that. The version that knew what the freedom was for. He thought that was one of the most exact descriptions of something he had felt but not named, this specific maturation of the original choice, not just the escape from the arrangement, but the building of the life that the escape had made possible. The document is that, he said. The knowing what the freedom is for. She looked at him. We ran from a framework that did not serve her, he said. We spent years building different frameworks. Now we are trying to make those different frameworks available to the people who do not have what we had, which was each other, which was the will to choose. She was very still. The testimony section is 12 people who did not have what we had, he said. Who were inside the frameworks with no exit, and no one willing to name what was happening to them. He paused. We owe them the spring session. We owe them more than that, she said. Yes, he said. The session is what we can do now. She looked at the old tree. The new leaves on it were very green, that specific early spring green before it deepened into the summer version. I am not frightened this time, she said. Not the way I was in the rating game hearings. The first time I testified I was frightened because I had never done it before, and I did not know what I was capable of. And now? He said. Now I know what I am capable of, she said. And the argument is right, and the testimony is real, and the people in the room are people who have heard us before, and know we do not waste their time. She paused. I am steady. You are steady, he said. She looked at him. Are you? He thought about it honestly. Yes, he said. I am. She leaned against him. He put his arm around her. The garden moved in its early spring way around them, the light coming through the new leaves at the angle it came at this time of year. They sat there until the light changed and the afternoon moved into the earlier evenings of spring. Chapter 61. Hannah came home for the session. She arrived on the 12th of April, 3 days early, which was the amount of time she had calculated she needed to read the final document, understand the full strategy, and be prepared for whatever role the session would require of her. The role the session would require of her was nothing, officially. She was not a participant. She was a student at the academy and a minor and the daughter of the architects, and her appropriate role was to be present as a person and not as a political instrument. She understood this. She also brought a 6-page analysis of the anticipated opposition arguments, and her assessment of which could be addressed with evidence, and which could only be addressed with presence. Issei read the 6 pages. He passed them to Rias without comment. Rias read them and set them down and said, where did she learn to build an anticipatory counter-argument structure? From reading the reform document process materials, Hannah said from the doorway. And from Professor Yashima's seminar on advocacy frameworks. And from thinking about it. She has been in the room, Rias said. I have been watching this room for 13 years, Hannah said. I know what the arguments look like when they are working and when they are not. Sho appeared behind her. What arguments? He said. Arguments about the new document, Hannah said. I will explain the relevant parts later. In terms I can understand? He said. In terms that account for your actual knowledge base, she said, which was her way of saying yes, that she would meet him where he was, which she had always done. The four of them had dinner that evening, and it was the full version, the table full, the conversation covering four things at once, the kitchen warm with the meal Rias had made. He looked around the table and thought about the same thing he thought about at these moments, the specific fullness of it, the life that had been built here. Hannah talked about Syra, who had also gone home to her family for the session period. She talked about the conversation she had had with Professor Yashima in the last week of term, which had been the one where Hannah had told her who her mother was. She had told it to Yashima directly and on record because she had established enough standing of her own in the term to do it without having the context overwhelm what she had built. How did she respond? Rias asked. She said she had suspected, Hannah said. She said the analytical style was recognizable. A pause. She also said that the quality of my work was mine, not inherited, and that she wanted me to be clear on the distinction. Good, Professor, Issei said. Yes, Hannah said. She is very good. She looked at Rias. She said your testimony at the third hearing was the single most effective use of principled argument, under structured pressure, she had ever witnessed. She has used it as a case study in 3 semesters. Rias was quiet for a moment. I did not know that, she said. I thought you should, Hannah said. Sho looked between them. What happened at the third hearing? He asked. Mama argued very well for something important, Hannah said. How well? He asked. Extremely well, Hannah said. I will tell you the details when you are a little older. I am 9, Sho said. Yes, Hannah said. And when you are 10 I will tell you. Sho appeared to accept this as a binding commitment, which it was, knowing Hannah. After dinner, when Sho had gone to bed, the 3 of them sat in the garden in the spring evening, which was warmer than the December garden had been, the night air carrying the early season quality that was neither winter nor summer but something between. The hearing will be long, Issei said. Yes, Hannah said. The opposition will use your name, he said. You know this. Yes, she said. I have thought about what I will do when they do. Which is? Rias said. Nothing, Hannah said. I will be in the public gallery with Syra and I will listen and take notes, and I will look like someone who is there to learn, because I am there to learn. And if anyone approaches me before or after to try to use me, I will be polite and uninformative. Uninformative, he said. I will say that I am proud of my parents' work and that I believe in the framework and that the arguments for it are in the document, which I encourage everyone to read. She looked at him. That is informative without being useful to anyone trying to make it about something other than the document. He looked at his daughter. Yes, he said. That is exactly right. She nodded. She had known it was right. She had wanted him to confirm it. The spring night held them and the garden was the April version, the growing season beginning, and in 3 days the hearing would open and the argument would be made for the people who had been waiting for someone to make it. He thought they were ready. Chapter 62. The spring session opened on a Tuesday. The hearing chamber was large and formal, the old architectural style of the central Underworld buildings, stone that had been shaped by power and time into something that felt absolute, the kind of space that was designed to make what happened inside it feel consequential. He had been in this room 4 times before, twice in the rating game hearings and twice for the reform ratification sessions. It did not intimidate him now the way it had the first time. He sat at the presenting table with Rias and Sona. Behind them in the public gallery he could see, without turning, the specific weight of the people present. The 14 opposition houses. The 9 supporting ones. The independents who had not yet decided, who were the ones the session was actually for. Sirzex was in the presiding chair. Not because it was his role to decide the outcome, but because it was his role to ensure the process was conducted properly. And the process needed someone with the authority to hold the room when the room pushed back. The session opened. The first hour was procedural. The document was formally entered into the record. The committee credentials were established. The scope of the session was defined. Then the presenting team was given the floor. Issei spoke first. He had written this opening specifically, had revised it 11 times, had read it aloud to Rias twice and to no one once. And the final version was the one that began not with the argument, but with the thing the argument was for. He told the room about 12 families. He did not use the testimony directly. He told what the testimonies had in common, the specific pattern of it, The experience of existing in a world that had frameworks that did not include you, that treated your children as edge cases, that provided no clarity on what rights you held or what protections existed or where you were supposed to go when you needed guidance that no existing structure was equipped to give. He told it without drama. He told it precisely. The room was quiet in the way that rooms were quiet when something was being said that could not be answered by not listening. Then he moved to the framework. He explained what it proposed, and why each element was necessary, and what the existing situation was in the absence of each element. He was in the document, but he was not reading the document. He was speaking it, the way you spoke something you had lived with long enough to know in 3 dimensions. Rias followed. She took the educational access section, and she made it specific, not abstract. She named the 7 institutions she had documented. She described the absence of policy, and what absence of policy produced in practice. She read 3 of the testimonies in full, with the family's permissions, which she noted for the record. She read them without emphasis, the way you read things that need no emphasis because the content carries itself. The room received this differently than the first hour. He could feel the quality of the attention change. The testimonies did that. They made it impossible to continue treating the framework as a purely theoretical question. Sona presented the legal architecture. She was precise and complete, and moved through the framework's structural elements with the efficiency of someone who had built part of the structure and understood all of it. She anticipated 3 of the principal objections and addressed them within the presentation, which meant the opposition could either raise those objections and have them already answered, or move to the objections that were less principled. The session broke for the first formal response. The opposition began with the conflict of interest argument. Issei listened to it. He had known it was coming. He let it complete. He asked for the floor. He said the document was built for people who currently have no framework. My family is among those people. That is not a conflict of interest. That is context. I have declared it. The committee has reviewed it. It is in the record. If the presence of personal context in a reform argument were disqualifying, almost no reform argument in the history of this institution would qualify, because the people most equipped to argue for the existence of a framework are the people who have experienced the absence of one. He said, evaluate the argument. The argument is in the document. The document is in the record. If the argument is wrong, show where it is wrong. If the argument is right, the identity of the person making it does not change that. He said this calmly. The room was quiet again. Then the principled opposition began. These were the ones he had come to engage, because these were the ones who could be moved by evidence and precision, and because moving them was what the session required. He stayed at the table for 4 hours. At the end of the session, the presiding chair called the first procedural vote on whether the framework should proceed to formal committee review. The vote was 14-9 in favor of proceeding. The 4 independents had voted yes. He sat at the table after the vote, and let the room begin to empty around him. Rias was beside him. She was not celebrating, which was not her way. She was looking at something ahead of her, the specific quality of looking that meant she was already in the next stage. Sona stood. First stage, she said. The committee review is longer than the session. Harder in some ways. I know, he said. But the 4 independents, she said. Yes, he said. She left. He and Rias sat at the table. 14-9, she said. The right 4 voted with us, he said. They did, she said. He thought about the 12 testimonies. He thought about Syra's mother waiting for someone to name the thing. He thought about Hannah in the gallery taking notes. We are not finished, he said. No, she said. But we have begun. She turned to look at him. Again, he said. She held his gaze for a moment. Then she stood. Come, she said. The children are waiting. He stood. He followed her out of the chamber and into the corridor, and through the old stone building that held the weight of centuries of decisions, and out into the afternoon of the underworld spring. And Hannah was outside with Sho, who had been brought for the afternoon by Akino, and Sho ran to them, and Hannah stood at a slight remove watching them with the expression she wore when she had observed something she wanted to write down. Well? Hannah said. First stage passed, Rias said. Hannah nodded once. The 4 independents, she said. Yes, Issei said. I thought they would, she said. The testimony section. I told you. You did, he said. You were right. She looked at him with the winter sky eyes that were hers and no one else's. The committee review is next, she said. Yes, he said. Longer, she said. Yes. Harder in some ways, she said. That is what Sona said. Sona is right, Hannah said. She looked at her brother, who was telling Rias about something with his full body animation. Then she looked back at Issei. But you built the first framework from the right argument. This one is also the right argument. Yes, he said. Then it will hold, she said. He looked at his daughter in the underworld spring afternoon, 13 years old and already certain of the thing that had taken him years to learn. Yes, he said. It will hold. Chapter 63. The committee review lasted 11 months. In those 11 months the document was examined by 7 subcommittees, revised twice, supplemented with an additional research appendix that Sona built with 3 junior researchers over the summer, and defended in 4 closed-session hearings that were not public and not recorded but that mattered more than the public ones because the people in those rooms were the ones who would ultimately carry the vote. Issei was in all 4 closed sessions. Rias was in 3. Sona was in all 4. Between sessions the work continued. Letters were written. Conversations happened. The political temperature rose and fell and rose again. The 8 strategic opposition houses had shifted in composition, 2 had moved to principled opposition after their specific objections were addressed, 2 had become quieter in ways that might mean reconsideration and might mean strategic regrouping. The remaining 4 were consistent and entrenched, and would require either direct negotiation or the votes of the houses that did not align with them, which was the more likely path. Issei spent a great deal of time in those 11 months thinking about the difference between winning an argument and changing what people believed. The rating game reform had taught him this distinction. You could be right and persuasive and still not have changed the thing that needed to change if the people in the room were not moved. Being moved required something more than the argument. It required the testimony, the personal version, the thing that made the abstract real. The 12 families had made the abstract real in the spring session. Over the 11 months, more families came forward. By the winter following this session there were 31 testimonies in the formal record. By the spring of the following year there were 49. He read every one. He kept them in a separate file from the document. He read them when the argument felt too abstract, when the political mechanics of the committee review threatened to make the whole project feel like a structure divorced from the people it was built for. The 49 testimonies brought him back each time. He thought about what it meant to be witnessed. To have your situation seen and named by someone with the standing to put the name in the record. He thought about the 1st October and a girl who had said, "I do not want to disappear without you knowing why." He thought about the courage of that. The specific courage of saying, "I exist and I am choosing and I need someone to know." The 49 families had said the same thing. The work was for them. Hannah came home for the summer and worked on her own project, which had nothing to do with the committee review and everything to do with what she was becoming. She was writing something, he knew, though she had not shown it to anyone. She worked in the mornings in her room, and came to the kitchen at noon with the abstracted quality of someone who had been deep in something and was resurfacing. He did not ask what she was writing. She would show it when she was ready. Sho was 10 and had learned 6 dishes and was working on a 7th, which was a braised dish that required patience and long timing and which he approached with the methodical calm that he brought to the architectural models. He was also, for the first time, showing interest in the underworld formally, not just as the place they went and the sky that looked different but as a place with a history and a structure and a politics that he was starting to want to understand. He asked Issei one afternoon, "What are you trying to do with the document?" Issei sat with him on the steps of the garden and explained it. Not the simplified version. The real one, at the level of what Sho could take in, which was more than most people expected. He explained about frameworks and the absence of them. He explained about the families and the testimonies. He explained about the committee process and what it was designed to do and why it took so long. Sho listened. He was quiet for a time. "So there are children like me and Hannah," he said, "who do not have the things we have." "Yes," Issei said. "Many of them. And you are trying to make a rule that says they should have them," Sho said. "I am trying to make a framework," he said. Which is more than a rule. A framework says what you are entitled to, and who is responsible for providing it, and what happens when they do not. A rule tells you what to do, Sho said. A framework tells you why and who is responsible. Yes, Issei said. That is a very good way to put it. Sho nodded. He thought about it. The rule was not enough before, Sho said. That is why you needed the framework. The rule did not exist before, Issei said. The framework is the first version. Sho considered this. Then you need to make sure it is right, he said. Because if the first version is wrong, you have to revise it, and revision is harder than building correctly the first time. Issei looked at his son. Yes, he said. That is why it takes so long. Sho nodded again, satisfied. He stood up and went back inside to continue the braised dish, which needed another 40 minutes and his full attention. Issei sat on the steps for a while longer. He thought about what it meant to explain the work to a 10-year-old and have the 10-year-old understand the fundamental principle in 2 exchanges. He thought about the quality of mind that required, the ability to strip the real thing from the structure around it. He thought Sho was going to understand more of the world than most people, and that he was going to do something precise with that understanding. He was very glad both of his children existed. He was very glad every day for this specific fact. Chapter 64. In September, Hannah showed them what she had been writing. It was 40 pages. It was structured as an argument but written as a narrative, which was a form he recognized as difficult, the combination of the personal and the analytical in the same register without letting one flatten the other. She had been working on it since the previous winter. She had revised it multiple times. The version she showed them was the one she had decided was finished. He read it. Rias read it. They read it separately, which was their practice with things that deserved individual attention before shared discussion. The 40 pages were an account of growing up bicultural. Not a polemic and not a memoir exactly, but something between, a precise and honest description of what it was to live with one foot in the devil world and one in the human world and neither fully belonging to either, and what it was to have parents who had built their own life outside the existing frameworks, and what that meant for the children who grew up in the life they had built. It was, in parts, very difficult to read, not because it was angry. It was not angry. It was honest, which was harder. It described the moments of uncertainty without softening them. The times at the academy when the house-ranking questions had landed with a particular weight because the answer was complicated. The times in the human district when she had moved between contexts in ways that required her to be slightly different versions of herself in each, not dishonest, but edited, and what the editing had cost over time. It also described what she had. The house and the garden. The conversations in the kitchen. The risk assessment at 13, which she described with a wry precision that made it clear she understood in retrospect what she had been doing. The old tree in autumn. The temple garden in October. The knowledge that she had parents who had chosen each other rather than been arranged, who had built rather than inherited, and what it meant to have been born into a built life rather than an arranged one. She wrote, I grew up knowing that things could be different from how they were. Not in the abstract way that children are sometimes told things can be different. In the specific way of watching my parents make them different, day by day, document by document, argument by argument. This is either the most useful thing they gave me or the most difficult. I am not certain yet which it is. I suspect it is both. When he finished reading, he sat with it for a long time. He went to find Rias. She was in the garden. She had been crying, which he had not seen her do often, and which she did not hide when she saw him. She sees all of it, Rias said. Yes, he said. The parts we did right, she said. And the parts we did not. Yes, he said. The editing, Rias said. I knew she was editing herself. I did not know how much it cost. She is not blaming us, he said. No, Rias said. She is telling us. There is a difference. She wiped her eyes, not quickly, taking the time it needed. She trusts us with the true version. He thought about what that meant. The specific gift of it. We have to tell her we read it, he said. And what we found in it. Yes, Rias said. All of it. They found Hannah in her room. She was at her desk, not working, waiting. She had known they would come. They sat with her, the three of them in her room with the Gasper drawings on the shelf and the books in their particular order, and the window that looked out over the Eastern District rooflines. And they talked about the 40 pages for a long time. They told her what it had done to them. Not what they thought of it as a document, but what it had done to them as her parents. The specific parts that had landed. The editing section. The kitchen section. The part near the end where she had written about the tree with the precision of someone who had understood what it meant without being told. Hannah listened. She asked 3 questions. She was quiet between the questions in the way she was quiet when she was holding something carefully. At the end she said, "I want to send it to the committee record." He looked at her. "As a supplemental testimony," she said. "Not under my name. Under a number. The way the other testimonies are recorded." She paused. "I want it to be in the record. I want the committee to have it before the final vote. Not because it will change the argument, which is already right, but because testimony number 50 is mine, and it should be there." He thought about 49 families who had waited for someone to name the thing. "Yes," he said. "It is your testimony," Rias said. "It is entirely your decision." "I have decided," Hannah said. He looked at his daughter in her room with the winter sky eyes and the full steady gaze and the 40 pages on her desk. "Then it goes in the record," he said. "Good," she said. She looked at the window. "I have been writing it for a long time. I am glad it will be used." "It will be more than used," he said. "It will matter." She nodded. She already knew. Chapter 65. The final committee vote was scheduled for the 22nd of March. In the weeks before, the political situation had crystallized in the way things crystallized when the outcome was almost but not yet determined. 37 of the 49 testimonies had been formally submitted to the committee record. Hannah's was testimony 42, submitted under a case number, indistinguishable in the record from the others but present. The 4 strategic opposition houses had not moved. The 2 that had become principled opposition had presented their remaining objections in the winter closed session, and 3 of those objections had been addressed in the final document revision. The 3rd was still unresolved and would require an acknowledged limitation in the framework, a section that said, "This element requires further development through the implementation working groups." Issei had argued for including the acknowledged limitation rather than pretending it did not exist. His reasoning was that a framework that admitted its own gaps was more credible than one that claimed completeness it did not have. Sona had agreed. Rias had agreed. The inner committee had agreed. The 2 formerly principled houses had indicated they would support the framework with the acknowledged limitation included. The math was close. If the 4 strategic houses held, the vote would be 12 to 11 in favor, which was a 1-vote margin. 1-vote margins passed, but they were fragile, and fragile passage meant fragile implementation. He needed more than 1 vote. He spent the week before the vote doing something he had not done before in the reform work, which was visiting the opposition houses individually. Not the strategic ones. The ones he thought might be listening. He went to 3 houses. He sat across from 3 different sets of people in 3 different configurations of formal sitting rooms and he made the argument. Not the document version, not the hearing version. The version that began with the 49 testimonies and ended with the framework, the version that made it impossible to pretend the question was theoretical. He read from 2 of the testimonies in each meeting. He chose different testimonies each time, selected for what he knew about each house's specific concern. He did not argue. He read, and he let the reading land, and then he said, "The framework is built to address what is in those testimonies. You can object to elements of the framework. You cannot object to the testimonies. The testimonies are true." The 3rd house he visited he had not expected to move. He went because the cost of going was low and the possibility, however small, was real. He sat across from the house head, a woman of considerable age and considerable experience named Bathiel, who had been in the Underworld's governance structure since before the restructuring. He told her about a girl who had grown up in a world where her existence had no name in the frameworks. He told her about a family who had been preparing for the document to exist for 6 years before it was written. He told her about testimony 42, which he described without using Hannah's name, as a description from a bicultural heritage young person who had grown up with advantages others in her situation did not have, and who had still found the gap between the worlds costly. Bathiel listened. She did not speak for a long time after he finished. Then she said, "You are not asking me to believe the framework is perfect." "No," he said. "I am asking you to believe it is necessary." She looked at him. She was assessing something, not him specifically but the quality of what he had brought to the room. "I believed it was necessary before you came," she said. "I was not certain it was well enough built." "The acknowledged limitation," he said. "The acknowledged limitation," she said, "tells me you are honest about what you do not yet know." She paused. "I have been doing this for a long time. Documents that claim completeness are the ones that fail in implementation. Documents that know their own edges are the ones that hold." He waited. "I will support it," she said. He took a breath. "Thank you," he said. "Do not thank me," she said. "Build the implementation correctly." She looked at him with the precision of someone who had watched many arguments succeed and fail over many decades. "The spring session is not the end. It is the beginning of the hard part." "I know," he said. "Good," she said. "Because most people do not know that, and then they are surprised." He left. He did not call anyone until he was back at the Eastern District House, and then he called Rias and told her. She was quiet for a moment. "Bathiel," she said. "Yes." "I never thought she would move," she said. "Neither did I," he said. "I went because the cost was low." "What did you say?" she said. "I told her about testimony 42, he said. A silence. "Our daughter," Rias said. "Our daughter," he said. Without using her name. Another silence. "The 22nd, she said. "Yes," he said. "We are ready." "We are," she said. He stood in the front room of the Eastern District House with the spring coming through the windows and the old tree in the garden visible from where he stood, the early leaves of it, the first green. He thought about the right argument, made well enough, for long enough. He thought about patience. He thought about the 22nd of March. He was ready. Chapter 66. The 22nd of March arrived overcast, which he had not arranged but which felt appropriate, the sky holding its opinion. They arrived at the committee chamber early. Sona was already there, which was expected, reviewing her notes with the particular quality of someone who was not nervous because they had done everything that could be done, and what remained was in the room's hands. Rias was in the formal version of herself, which was not a different person but a different arrangement of the same person, the one who walked into rooms where names carried weight and met that weight without yielding to it. He had watched her do this for 15 years and it still struck him, the specific quality of it, the way she could be entirely present and entirely composed simultaneously. He sat down. He looked at the room. 42 members of the formal committee. Presiding was not Sirzex today but the full council chair, a devil named Ambrosius who had been in governance for 40 years and who was as close to neutral as anyone in the room could be. Neutral in this context meant honest, which was what they needed. The session opened. The procedural phase was briefer than the spring sessions had been. The framework had been in formal review for 11 months. Everyone in the room knew what it contained. The question now was whether it would pass. The opposition presented first. The 4 strategic houses made their arguments, which were the arguments they had been making in various forms across 11 months, refined but not substantially changed. Conflict of interest. Questions about the legitimacy of the architects. Concerns about implementation burden. He listened without expression. Then the supporting coalition presented. He did not speak first this time. Sona opened, the legal architecture section, precise and complete. Rias followed with the testimony record, 49 testimonies, the pattern of them, the specific weight of what 49 families had said about the experience of existing in the gap. Then he spoke. He spoke for 27 minutes. He had not timed it specifically. He had built the argument, and the argument took 27 minutes to make properly. He did not rush, and he did not pad. He made each point and moved to the next and built toward the place where all of it came together, which was the framework's central claim, that a system that does not include everyone it governs is not a complete system, and the incompleteness is not a minor administrative gap but a fundamental failure. And fundamental failures do not correct themselves, they are corrected by people who decide they should be. He said, "This has been decided by 49 families who put their names in the record." By the people in this room who spent 11 months examining the argument, and could not find it wrong. By the members of this committee who will now vote on whether to make the correction official. He said, the argument is in the document. The document is correct. The vote is whether this institution is prepared to say so. He sat down. The room was quiet. Then Ambrosius called for the vote. He had been in 4 votes before this one. The rating game reform vote. The 2 ratification sessions. The spring session procedural vote. He knew what they felt like from inside the room, the particular quality of the silence before the count, the way the air changed as each member declared. This one was different. This one had 49 testimonies in it. This one had a 40-page document by a 14-year-old in it, filed as testimony 42, read by at least some of the people in this room. This one had 11 months of the right argument, made by the right people to the people who were capable of being moved by it. The count went 27-15 in favor. Bathiel voted yes. Both former principled opposition houses voted yes. 3 independents who had not been certain went yes. 27-15. He sat at the table and looked at the number. Sona was very still beside him. Rias put her hand over his on the table. He did not speak. There was nothing to say yet. The room was still completing the formalities, the official record, the formal language of ratification. He let it complete. When the chamber session formally closed, and the room began to move, he stood, and Sona shook his hand and then held it for a moment in both of hers, which was the most demonstrative he had seen her be in 15 years. 27, she said. 27, he said. You moved Bathiel, she said. Testimony 42 moved Bathiel, he said. Sona looked at him. She knew what testimony 42 was. He had told her the night before, because she had been in this from the beginning and deserved to know the full shape of it. Hannah, she said. Yes, he said. She was quiet for a moment. She is going to do this work, Sona said. When she is ready. Isn't she? Yes, he said. She already decided. Good, Sona said. We will need her. She released his hand. I need to begin the implementation framework. 27 does not hold itself. She left. He and Rias were the last ones at the table. 27, she said. 27, he said. She looked at him with the winter sky eyes and the full real smile and the specific expression that appeared when something had been built correctly and had arrived at its destination. We did it, she said. We did, he said. He thought about a 32-page document on a table in his study, 2.5 years ago. He thought about 49 testimonies. He thought about Syra's mother waiting for someone to name the thing. It was named. It was in the record. The framework existed. Come on, she said. The children are waiting. They walked out of the chamber together. Chapter 67. They told Hannah that evening by call, because she was at the academy in the middle of term, and because she had asked to be told immediately regardless of the hour. He made the call. She answered on the second signal. 27-15, he said. She was quiet for 3 full seconds. Bathiel, she said. Testimony 42, he said. Another second of quiet. She read it, Hannah said. Evidently, he said. I did not write it for the vote, she said. I want you to know that. I know, he said. You wrote it because it was true and because it should be in the record. And it also helped, she said. Yes, he said. Both things, she said. Both things, he said. Yes. She was quiet again, a different kind of quiet, the one that meant she was holding something and deciding what to do with it. Are you glad? He said. Yes, she said. Then, after a moment, and I want to tell Syra. Tell her, he said. Her family, Hannah said. They are in the record. Yes, he said. All 49 families are in the record. The framework covers them. I will tell her, Hannah said. Tonight. Good, he said. Papa, she said. Yes. You built this correctly, she said. The first version. You built it correctly so it would hold. He thought about show at 10 on the garden steps. Building correctly the first time. He thought about how the things he had tried to teach his children had come back to him in the specific voices of the children he had tried to teach them to. We built it, he said. Your mother and Sona and the 49 families and everyone who was part of this. And you? Testimony 42, she said. Testimony 42, he said. Tell Mama I will call tomorrow, she said. For the full version. I will tell her, he said. And tell Sho, she said, that the framework is like the model. You have to account for the actual conditions, not the assumed ones. He smiled. I will tell him. He will understand, she said. He will, he said. Good night, Hannah. Good night, she said. The call ended. He sat in the quiet of the study for a moment, the Eastern District house around him, the spring night outside, the old tree in the garden going its particular spring version in the dark. He thought about the word framework. He thought about what it meant to build one. Not the document, not the vote, but the thing the document described, the actual structure that would now have to be built into every institution it touched, one working group at a time, one policy revision at a time, one school admission procedure at a time. Bathiel had said, the spring session is not the end. It is the beginning of the hard part. She was right. But the beginning had been reached. That was not nothing. That was, in fact, everything it needed to be. Chapter 68. Summer came. Both children were home. Hannah was 14 and finishing her second year at the academy. Sho was 10 and finishing his first year in which he had asked, and been granted, one afternoon per week in the Underworld instead of the Human District School, which he used to study the Eastern Quarter's architecture in person with a guide Issei had arranged, a historian named Takawari who had been working on the old quarter's records for 30 years. The summer had the quality that summers had when both children were home and there was no immediate crisis, and the work was in its next phase rather than its acute phase. The days were longer. The evenings in the garden were extended. The kitchen was noisier. Hannah was cooking now. She had taken up the thread of it in her second year at the academy with the same methodical determination Rias had brought to it, and she had reached a level of competence that she was quietly proud of in the way she was quietly proud of things she had worked for. She and Rias cooked together on the weekend mornings, which was a development that had not been planned but had become one of the settled patterns of the house. Sho was also still cooking. The two of them in the kitchen on a Saturday morning was a specific kind of happy noise, the overlapping commentary and questions and occasional disagreements about technique, and it produced very good food. Issei sat at the garden table in the Saturday morning with tea and the summer version of the Eastern District around him, listening to the kitchen sounds, looking at the old tree in its full summer color. He thought about what it meant to be in this moment. He thought about it deliberately, not as an exercise but because he had learned over years that the moments worth holding were worth being present for intentionally, not just in retrospect. It was something Rias had taught him without meaning to, the quality of attention she brought to the things she valued, the way she was entirely in a thing when she chose to be in it. He was in this, the summer garden. The kitchen sounds. His wife and his children in the house. The work in its next phase, the implementation framework moving forward, Sona heading the working groups with the efficiency of someone who had been preparing for this work for 15 years without calling it that. The 49 families with the framework now. He thought about testimony 42. He thought about Hannah at 14, 2 years into the academy, Saira her honest friend, Professor Yashima's seminar on advocacy frameworks, the 40 pages she had written and the decision she had made about who she was going to be when her time came. He thought about Sho at 10, learning the names of things in the old quarter with Takawari, accounting for actual conditions rather than assumed ones, making braised dishes that required patience and the management of multiple variables. He thought we did this, not meaning only the document or the vote. Meaning all of it. The house and the garden and the old tree and the kitchen on Saturday mornings and the children who had grown into themselves inside the life that had been built rather than arranged. Rias came out of the kitchen with a second cup of tea and sat beside him. Hannah and Sho are arguing about the correct temperature for the pan, she said. Who is right? He said. Sho, she said. He has been tracking temperature variables for 6 months. He is precise. Did you tell them? I told them I would let them work it out, she said. Because Sho will demonstrate it, and Hannah will accept the demonstration, and they will both be better for the process. He looked at her. Very patient of you. I have been practicing, she said. He took her hand. She let him, the way she always let him in these moments, the full easy acceptance of it that had become native to them both over years of mornings and evenings and ordinary extraordinary days. The implementation progress, she said. Good, he said. 3 institutions have begun the policy revision process. Sona expects 6 by the fall. And the academy? She said. Yashima is on the internal working group, he said. She will push it correctly. Rias looked at the old tree. Hana will be in the second cohort to be covered by the new admissions policy, she said. The year after next, he said. She will not need it, Rias said. She has already established her own standing. No, he said. But the student after her will need it. And the one after that. Yes, Rias said. That is the point. The kitchen sounds continued. The argument about pan temperature appeared to be resolving, based on the shift in the tone of the voices, toward demonstration rather than debate. He thought about the spring session. He thought about 27 to 15. He thought about Bathiel saying, the spring session is not the end. It is the beginning of the hard part. He thought they were in the hard part, and it did not feel hard in the way he had expected. It felt like work, which was different from crisis. Work was something you could build a life around. Work was something you could do in the mornings and then come out into the garden in the afternoon, and let be what it was. Crisis was different. Crisis required everything you had. Work required everything you had too, but in a different rhythm, the sustained kind rather than the acute kind. He was glad to be in the work phase. He thought they had earned the work phase. The summer is good, Rias said. Yes, he said. I want it to stay like this for a while, she said. It will, he said. For a while. She looked at him. She knew he meant it with all its honesty, that nothing stayed one way forever, that the work would have its next acute moment, and the children would have their next threshold, and the life would keep moving in the direction it had always moved, which was forward and into the next version of itself. For a while, she said, accepting it. For this summer, he said. For this. He indicated the garden and the house and the kitchen sounds and all of it. Yes, she said. For this. They held it. The summer morning moved around them. The old tree was fully itself. The kitchen argument had concluded in favor of demonstration, and the sound of cooking had resumed with the particular quality of two people working in agreement. He was here, completely. He was going to keep being here, through all the versions of all the seasons. That had not changed. That was not going to change. Chapter 69. The Gremory estate visit happened in late August. It happened every year, which had not always been the case. In the earliest years it had been occasional and careful, the political situation requiring caution, the emotional situation requiring time. But over years the caution had become unnecessary, and the time had done its work, and now it was simply a visit, twice a year, the summer version and the winter version, and it had the quality of something that had been arrived at properly rather than arranged. Lord Gremory had changed. This was the thing about time that Issei had not fully anticipated when he was younger, the way it moved through people. Lord Gremory in the first years of the fracture had been a man carrying the weight of the disruption, the political cost, the renegotiated relationship with the Phoenix House, the revised understanding of his daughter. He had been formal with Issei in those early years, not unkind but careful, the way you were careful with someone who had changed the shape of something you had built your life around. And then gradually, incrementally, across visits that accumulated into a pattern, something had shifted. The shift had come in stages. The first time Lord Gremory had talked to Issei directly about the reform document, not diplomatically but with genuine interest in what the document was trying to do. The first time he had held Hannah and Issei had seen in his face the expression that was pure and not political. The first time he had stood in the Eastern District House, been shown around by Sho who had treated him without ceremony and with the straightforward friendliness Sho had for people he found interesting, and had sat in the garden and looked at the old tree and said quietly, to no one in particular, she was right. That had been the moment. The specific moment when the word he became she and meant Rias, and the right became not conditional. The August visit was warm in both senses. The estate garden was in its late summer richness and Lord Gremory was in his late summer version, which was more relaxed than the winter version, the formality worn lighter in the heat. He showed Sho the oldest section of the estate's gardens, which contained architectural features from the 1st century, and Sho talked to him about the Eastern District's 3rd century water systems with the authority of someone who had been studying them for a year. Lord Gremory listened to Sho with genuine attention. He asked good questions. He looked, when he thought no one was watching, at his grandchildren with an expression that was everything he had not expected and was grateful for. Hannah spent most of the visit in the estate library, which Lord Gremory had opened to her with an invitation that was genuine and that she had accepted without ceremony. She came to dinner with 2 books she had found that she had not known existed and told her grandfather about both of them with the directness she brought to intellectual discoveries, and Lord Gremory had the specific pleasure on his face of a man who recognized something of himself in the person across the table. At dinner Issei sat next to Rias and watched her family and felt the specific warmth of a thing that had been broken and had been rebuilt differently but with the same essential love, the love that had been there all along even when it was buried under the obligation and the arrangement. After the children had gone to explore the estate with a servant who knew all the old stories, Rias and her father sat in the garden alone. Issei excused himself. This was their time, the 2 of them, which they needed and which he had long since learned to provide without being asked. He walked the estate paths alone for a while. The late summer estate was beautiful in its particular way, the centuries of deliberate cultivation having created something that could not be rushed, the hedges and the stone paths and the fountain at the center moving its slow water. He thought about the first time he had been in this estate. The formal suit and the tight collar. The ceremony hall filling with guests. The corridor and the window and the garden below. He thought about the gate in the eastern wall. The lane. The road. The train. He thought about how far this garden was from that one, in the only distance that mattered, which was not space but time and everything that had happened in it. He reached the fountain. He stood beside it and looked at the water. Footsteps on the path behind him. He turned. Lord Gremory. He stopped beside the fountain. He looked at the water for a moment. She told me what you said to her that morning, he said. In the corridor. Before she left. Issei was quiet. That you would rather be wherever she was than anywhere else without her, he said. He waited. I was angry when I heard it, Lord Gremory said. For a long time I was angry at you for it. I know, Issei said. Because I had not said it to her, he said. Not in those terms. Not in a way she could carry with her. He paused. I had given her everything the name could provide. I had not given her that. He was quiet. I understand now that those are different things, Lord Gremory said. The name and the person. I confused them for a long time. I thought providing for the name was the same as providing for the person. He looked at the fountain. It is not. No, Issei said. She knew it, he said. Which is why she left. He paused. And you knew it. Which is why you went with her. Issei looked at the water. She has been extraordinary, Lord Gremory said. What she has built. What you both have built. He was quiet for a moment. I am proud of her. I was always proud of her. I did not always show it in ways she could use. Issei thought about what to say. He chose the honest thing. She knows, he said. She has known for years. Has she said so? He said. Not in words, Issei said. In the way she brings the children here. In the way she sits with you in the garden. In the way she lets Hannah find things in your library. He paused. She would not do those things if she did not believe in what they were for. Lord Gremory was very still. She does not hold the past against people who grow, Issei said. It is one of the best things about her. A long silence. You are good for her, Lord Gremory said. Not as a concession. As an assessment, made honestly by someone who had taken years to arrive at it. She is good for me, Issei said. We are good together. Lord Gremory nodded. He looked at the fountain for a moment longer, and then he looked at Issei directly. The document, he said. The Bicultural Heritage Framework. Yes. 27-15, he said. I followed the vote. Yes. It was the right argument, he said. I am told by several people who were in the room that you made it correctly. We had good people, Issei said. The argument was right. The argument is always right when you are the one making it, Lord Gremory said. What is rare is making it in a way that the people in the room can hear. He looked at him. You have that. Both of you. You make arguments that can be heard. He thought about Bathiel. He thought about Testimony 42. My daughter helped, he said. Lord Gremory looked at him. Hannah? She submitted a testimony, Issei said. Under a case number. I will tell you more if she gives me permission. But she was part of the 27. Lord Gremory was quiet for a long moment. She is 14, he said. Yes, Issei said. And she submitted a formal testimony to a major committee hearing, he said. Yes, Issei said. My granddaughter, he said, with the specific weight of the phrase, the full weight. Your granddaughter, Issei said. Lord Gremory looked at the fountain. He looked at it for a long time. Then he said quietly, the name is in good hands. And that was the whole of it. Everything that had been difficult, and everything that had been earned, and everything that had moved from arrangement to choice to something built, and real and good. Issei stood beside the Gremory fountain in the late summer evening and thought about what it had taken to arrive at this moment. He thought it was worth every step of the arriving. Yes, he said. It is. Chapter 70. The last evening of the August visit they sat together in the estate garden, all of them, the way they sat together at these visits when the formal parts were done, and what remained was simply the being together. Lord Gremory, Rias and Issei. Hannah with the 2 books from the library, reading in the ambient conversation in the way she had always been able to read in the presence of talking if the talking was the comfortable kind. Sho with his notebook, which he carried everywhere now, recording observations about whatever he had been seeing that day. The evening was warm and long. The fountain made its slow sound at the center of the garden. The estate was in its late August fullness. Issei looked around the gathering. He thought about the shape of this family. How it had formed from rupture and choice and the patient work of years. The father who had needed time to understand and had taken that time and arrived somewhere better. The daughter who had chosen her own life, and then made room in it for the people who had come to deserve the room. He thought about his children in the midst of this, receiving from their grandfather the attention and the library access and the genuine interest, receiving from their grandmother's absence the knowledge that what they had was real rather than arranged, and from their grandfather's presence the knowledge that real things could grow even from complicated beginnings. He thought about what Hannah would tell Sho, someday, when he was old enough for the full story. He thought about what version of it Sho would add to what he already knew, which was already more than most children his age, because Sho had been paying attention for 10 years to a household where people said true things and did real things and built what they believed in. Hannah looked up from her book and caught him looking at the gathering. She looked at it too, briefly, with the assessment she gave to things she was putting in the record. Then she looked at him. She did not say anything. She gave him the small nod that meant, yes. I see it too. He gave it back. She returned to her book. Sho wrote something in his notebook, looked up at the fountain, wrote something else. Lord Gremory was telling Rias something about the history of the fountain that she did not already know, which was a narrower category than it used to be but still existed, and she was listening with the real attention, the version that meant she was going to remember it. He held the evening carefully. He thought, this is what it was for, all of it. The corridor and the train and the apartment and the dissolution and the long walk to the right place. The reform document and the 47 pages and the hearings and the vote and the bicultural heritage framework and the 27. All the arguments made correctly for people who needed them made. This. The estate garden in August with the people who had been shaped by the choosing and the building, who had arrived here not through arrangement but through the accumulated right choices of people who had decided they were allowed to make them. He thought about what Hannah had written. I grew up knowing that things could be different from how they were. Not in the abstract way that children are sometimes told things can be different. In the specific way of watching my parents make them different, day by day, document by document, argument by argument. He thought that was the finest thing he had ever helped to create. Not the documents. Not the frameworks. That his daughter had grown up knowing, in her bones, that things could be different from how they were. That was the inheritance. Not a name. Not a house. Not an arrangement. The knowledge that the choosing was possible. The knowledge that the building was worth it. The knowledge that whatever the next version of this life was going to require, the tools for it had already been laid down, in the house and the garden and the kitchen on Saturday mornings and the temple garden in every October, and the patient honest love of 2 people who had chosen each other in a corridor on an October morning, and had not stopped choosing since. The sun was going down over the estate garden. Rias looked at him from across the gathering and he looked back at her, and in her face was the whole of it, The version of her that had walked out of an estate with a bag over her shoulder, and said, "Come with me." He had come with her. He would keep coming with her. That was the simplest and most complete thing he knew. The evening went on. The fountain made its sound. The old name in the garden, the new life inside it, the two children adding their own chapters to the story that had started with a choice, and would keep going for as long as there were choices left to make. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. Act 5, What We Leave. Chapter 71. Hannah was 17 when she came back from the academy for the last time. Not the last time she would visit. The last time as a student. She had completed the full course, 5 years, and had done so with a record that was her own in every sense, earned in the specific way that things were earned when you had decided from the beginning that the record had to stand on its own foundation. She had graduated at the top of her cohort in 3 of her 5 study areas. She had published a paper in the Academy's academic journal at 16, which was the earliest it had been done in 11 years. She had not used her name or her parents' work to build any of this. It had been built from the quality of her thinking and the thoroughness of her preparation and the patient accumulation of 5 years of doing the thing correctly. She came home on a Friday afternoon in late spring, the same season she had left 5 years ago, but not the same season at all. The way things that share a surface quality are fundamentally altered by the time between them. She was different in the way that people were different after 5 years of becoming themselves inside an institution that had required them to be precise about who they were. She was taller by several centimeters and her hair was shorter than it had been, and she wore the particular ease of someone who had tested herself repeatedly, and knew the result. She was still exactly Hannah. The directness. The full attention. The assessment of things before she named them. Sho was 14 and met her at the door with the same full-body welcome he had always brought to her returns, slightly more contained now that he was 14 but still the essential version of it, the full commitment greeting of someone who had missed the person and was not going to perform otherwise. "You are done," he said. "I am done," she said. "Finally," he said. "I have things to show you." "I know," she said. "Show me." She dropped her bags and followed him, still in her travel coat, to see the things he had been waiting to show her for the length of the term, which turned out to be an architectural model of a district in the eastern quarter that no one had fully documented before, built over 6 months from Takaori's records and Sho's own observations, and which was significantly more detailed than anything he had previously built, and which represented a genuine contribution to the historical record of the quarter. She stood in front of it, and looked at it the way she looked at things worth looking at, which was with the full weight of her attention given freely and completely. "The 3rd century water routing," she said, after a while. "Yes," he said. "You found the original channels." "Takaori found them in the records," he said. "I built them to scale." "The overflow provision accounts for seasonal variance," she said. "I always account for seasonal variance now," he said. "You told me to." "You corrected me about pan temperature," she said. "Pan temperature is not the same as water systems," he said. "The principle is the same," she said. "Account for actual conditions." He looked at the model. He looked at her. "Yes," he said. "The principle is the same." She put her arm around him briefly, which was her version of the full-body greeting, and he received it with the equilibrium of a 14-year-old who had been waiting 5 years for his sister to be home permanently. "Tell me everything," he said. "I will tell you the parts that are relevant and interesting," she said. "Those are the same thing," he said. "Usually," she agreed. Rias was in the kitchen when Hannah found her, which was where Rias often was in the late afternoons, the kitchen being the place where the day's accumulated things settled into manageable form. She turned when Hannah came in. They held each other without speaking for a moment. There was no need to speak. 5 years of weekly calls and quarterly visits, and the ongoing accumulation of the relationship between them had created a kind of fluency that did not require words for the basic things. "You are home," Rias said. "I am home," Hannah said. "For good," Rias said. "For this part." "For this part," Hannah agreed, which was the honest version. Home until the next thing, home in the way that home was home when you were 17 and the next chapter was assembled and waiting. Issei found her in the garden an hour later. She was sitting on the stone bench near the pond, coat finally off, in the late afternoon light of late spring. She had the quality of someone who had just completed a long journey and was letting the arrival settle. He sat beside her. How does it feel? He said. She thought about it in the way she thought about things that deserved honesty. Finished, she said. And not finished. Both. She looked at the garden. I am done with that part. The standing up on my own part. I know now that I can do it. I did not know that with certainty before I went. And now? He said. Now I know it, she said. Which changes what comes next. She looked at the old tree. It was in its late spring version, the leaves full and deep green, the summer's shape almost fully arrived. I want to begin the work, she said. The real version of it. Not analysis from the outside. From inside. You said you would wait until you had your own standing, he said. I have it, she said. She said it simply, not with pride in the showing-off sense but with the quiet assurance of someone reporting a fact. I built it the way you told me to. On its own foundation. It stands. He looked at his daughter. Yes, he said. It does. Then I am ready, she said. He thought about her at 13 with the risk assessment. He thought about testimony 42. He thought about a paper published at 16 in an academic journal, a record that stood on its own foundation and needed no name to explain it. Tell me what you want to do, he said. She told him. She had thought about it for years, she said, not the specific shape of it but the direction. She wanted to work on the implementation of the bicultural heritage framework. Not the policy-level work, which was Sona's domain, but the ground-level work, the work of going to the institutions that were supposed to be implementing the framework and finding out what was actually happening in practice, the gap between what the document said and what was occurring in the rooms and corridors and admissions offices where the framework was either being applied or quietly being set aside. She had read the first 2 implementation reports. She had found them thorough at the structural level and incomplete at the experiential level. They measured the existence of policies. They did not measure whether the policies were producing what they were supposed to produce. You want to measure the experience, he said. I want to go and ask, she said. The families. The students. The people who are inside the institutions. The way you read the testimonies. Except not just for the record. For the working group to use in the next round of implementation review. Sona runs the working group, he said. I know, she said. I want to work with her. He looked at the garden. I will make the introduction, he said. Though I suspect she has already been anticipating it. She sent me a note last week, Hannah said. Congratulating me on the graduation and saying she looked forward to discussing my plans when I was settled. He looked at her. She already made the introduction herself, he said. She is efficient, Hannah said. He thought about Sona at 23, sitting across from him in a coalition meeting with 3 questions that had been very sharp. He thought about 15 years of the right fight, conducted by someone who was precise and honest and had never once confused what was easy with what was correct. You will work well together, he said. I believe so, she said. They sat in the late spring garden and the afternoon moved around them, the light going golden in the way it went in this season, and the old tree was fully itself and the house behind them held the sounds of Sho explaining something to Rias about the model's 3rd century channels. Welcome home, he said. Thank you, she said. She looked at the tree. I thought about it often. At the academy. When things were difficult, or when I needed to be certain of something. The tree? He said. The whole thing, she said. The house and the garden and what it means that this exists. What you and Mama built. She paused. It was the clearest thing I had. When I was uncertain about anything, I thought about this and I was certain again. He held this. That is what we hoped, he said. When we were building it. Not in words. But that is what we hoped. She looked at him. The winter sky eyes, her own, entirely. You did it correctly, she said. He thought there was no better thing to hear. Not from anyone. But especially from her. We tried, he said. You succeeded, she said. Simply. As a fact. The garden held them in the late spring evening and the light was the good kind and his daughter was home and the work was waiting in its next form and the life was still going, still becoming, still exactly what it had been chosen to be. Chapter 72. The implementation work began in September. Hannah joined Sona's working group as a junior researcher with a specific brief, Experiential Assessment of Bicultural Heritage Framework Implementation across 6 institutions in the first phase. The brief was Hannah's own proposal, submitted to Sona in July in the form of a 12-page methodology document that Sona had read once and then approved without revision, which was not something she did often. The 6 institutions included the Academy, 2 regional underworld schools, one of the major human world supernatural liaison academies, and 2 institutions that served populations on the margins of all the formal categories, the places where people went when the existing frameworks had no place for them. Hannah spent 3 months visiting them. She went with Syra, who had finished at the academy the same year and who had chosen research work for similar reasons, the gap between what the frameworks said and what the families inside them experienced. The 2 of them moved through the 6 institutions with the methodical precision they had both developed across 5 years of working together, asking the real questions in the way that produced real answers, which was not by asking whether the policies existed but by asking how the policies felt when you were living inside them. They came back in December with a report that was 63 pages and contained 47 new testimonies. Issei read the report. It was the best piece of research work he had encountered in the implementation phase, and it was not close. It was not best because it was thorough, which it was. It was best because it understood that the gap between policy and experience was not primarily a structural problem. It was a relationship problem. The institutions that were implementing the framework well were the ones where individual people had decided to make the framework real, not because it was required but because they understood what it was for. The institutions that were implementing it poorly were the ones where the framework existed on paper, and no one had been tasked with making it exist in practice. The report recommended not a revision to the framework but a supplemental provision, a designated implementation coordinator role at each institution, with specific responsibilities and accountability structures, whose job was to be the person who made the framework real in the rooms and corridors where it needed to be real. It was exactly right. He told her so. I know, she said. How do you want to present it to the working group? He said. The way you presented the testimony section at the spring session, she said. Not with the analysis first. With the people first. Then the analysis. 47 testimonies, he said. 47, she said. And the 47 plus the original 49 is 96. Which is enough to be a pattern that can no longer be treated as anecdotal. He thought about the spring session. He thought about the room that had gone quiet when Rias read 3 testimonies in full. He thought about the quality of attention that had changed. 96, he said. 96, she said. Presented correctly. He looked at his daughter in the winter light of December, 17 years old and holding a 63-page report, and already thinking about how to make the room hear it. Sona will schedule the presentation, he said. She already has, Hannah said. February. Of course she has, he said. Hannah looked at him with the small expression that appeared when she found something genuinely pleasing. She is very efficient, she said. She always has been, he said. You are well matched. Hannah considered this. We are different in method, she said. She works from structure outward. I work from experience inward. We arrive at the same place from different directions. That is a useful combination, he said. I know, she said. It is why she invited me. He looked at his daughter. He thought about all the versions of this he had imagined over the years, the hazy sense of what she would become, the becoming that had happened without any of the imagining being quite accurate because the reality of who she was had always exceeded what he could project. Are you happy? He said. She looked at him. She considered it with the full honesty she gave to questions that deserved it. Yes, she said. Not in the easy sense. In the sense that I am doing the right thing in the right way and I can feel that it is right. She paused. That is the kind of happy that holds. Yes, he said. It is. She went back to the report. He went to find Rias. Chapter 73. Sho turned 15 in the spring. For his birthday he asked for 2 things. The first was a particular set of historical maps of the Eastern Quarter that Takaori had mentioned existed in the archive, and which had not been digitized and which were therefore not accessible without a formal research request. Issei submitted the request on his behalf and the maps arrived in February, 3 months before the birthday, and Sho had them on his wall before the wrapping paper was disposed of. The second thing he asked for was a conversation. He said it exactly that way. He came to Issei on a Tuesday in March and said, "For my birthday I want a real conversation. Just us. About something I have been thinking about." "That is not a birthday present," Issei said. "That is a conversation you can have any time." "I know," Sho said. "But making it a birthday request means we will do it properly. With time and nowhere to be." He thought about this. It was very Sho, the precision of the reasoning. If you name it as a formal occasion, it gets the attention a formal occasion receives. "Saturday," he said. "The whole afternoon." "Good," Sho said. "I will prepare." On Saturday they walked through the old quarter together. This was something they did occasionally, not on a schedule, but when Sho wanted to show him something or explain something about what he was learning from Takaori's records. The old quarter was its spring version, the ancient stone warm in the afternoon light. Sho had been preparing, which meant he had been thinking about how to begin, and after a few blocks he found his entry point. "I want to do something with the architecture," he said. "Not just study it. Do something with it." "What kind of something?" Issei said. "The old quarter has sections that are in decline," Sho said. "Not because the buildings are unsound. Because there is no coherent framework for deciding which ones are worth preserving and which modifications are permissible, and which new construction can happen in ways that do not destroy what is already there." He paused. "The historical preservation framework that exists is incomplete. It was written before anyone had the full documentation of what the quarter contains." Issei looked at him. "You want to write a new framework," he said. "I want to help write a new framework," Sho said. "I am 15. I am not ready to lead it. But I have been building the documentation for 2 years with Takaori, and I have a better map of what is here than most of the people who make decisions about it." He paused. "I think my documentation is the foundation the framework needs. And I think if I bring it to the right people it can become something real." He thought about a 12-page methodology document submitted to Sona in July. He thought about a 32-page document written by a 24-year-old who had decided the argument needed to be made. He thought about the way this family did things, which was by building the foundation correctly and then bringing it to the people who could use it. "Who are the right people?" he said. "There is a historical preservation committee attached to the Eastern District Council," Sho said. "Takaori is a member. He has been a member for 12 years and has been frustrated for 12 years because the committee operates without sufficient documentation to make defensible decisions." He looked at Issei. "If I complete the full documentation of the old quarter and present it as a formal research contribution, Takaori believes the committee will accept it and use it as the basis for a revised framework." "How long is the full documentation?" Issei said. "At current rate, 18 months, Sho said. I would finish it in the autumn of next year." He thought about a 15-year-old who had been building models since he was 7 and had been studying the real thing since he was 10, and who had spent 5 years accumulating knowledge that had its own integrity and its own foundation. "The documentation is already 2 years in," he said. "Yes," Sho said. "I have 18 months of work left. I know what I am doing. I know why it matters. I am not asking permission." He looked at Issei directly. "I am telling you. Because you told me to tell you the real things." He looked at his son. "Yes," he said. "I did tell you that. And I am telling you," Sho said. He thought about a girl at 13 with a risk assessment. He thought about a boy at 15 with 2 years of documentation already done, and 18 months of plan and the precision to know the difference between asking permission and informing the people who deserve to be informed. "Tell me what you need," he said. "Access to the deeper archive records," Sho said. "Takaori has most of it, but there are restricted sections that require a formal co-sponsorship from an established researcher." "I will co-sponsor," he said. "I thought you would," Sho said. "But I wanted to ask directly rather than have Takaori ask on my behalf." "Yes," he said. "Always ask directly." "I know," Sho said. "You taught me that." They walked through the old quarter for another hour. Sho showed him 3 specific buildings he had identified as structurally significant, explaining what made each one significant, the evidence for the dating, the specific architectural features that placed them in the historical record. He explained these things with the fluency of someone who had been living inside the subject for years, not performing expertise but simply speaking from the inside of what he knew. He was 15, and he was already a historian. He was going to be something remarkable. On the way home, Sho said, without any particular preamble, "Do you think I am like Hannah?" He thought about this honestly. "You are both direct," he said. "You both build foundations before you build structures. You both want to understand the real thing rather than the official version." He paused. "But you are different in how you move. Hannah maps the terrain before she enters it. You enter the terrain and learn it from inside." Sho considered this. "Which is better?" he said. "Neither," he said. "They are both correct ways to move through the world. Different things need different approaches." "She corrects from outside," Sho said. "I build from inside." "Yes," he said. "The work needs both." Sho nodded, satisfied. He appeared to have been testing something, some sense of himself against his sister, and the test had returned a result he could use. "Good," he said. They walked home through the afternoon. Chapter 74. The February presentation of Hannah's implementation report to the working group produced 3 results. The first was an agreement to develop the implementation coordinator provision as a formal supplement to the bicultural heritage framework. The working group voted on this in the second session, after Hannah had presented the 96 testimonies in the way she had described, with the experience first and the analysis second, and the room had gone through the same quality of attention change that Issei recognized from the spring session years before. The second result was an invitation for Hannah and Syra to join the working group formally, not as external researchers submitting reports but as members with a defined research and assessment function. Sona had proposed this before the presentation. It passed without objection. The third result was a conversation between Hannah and a woman named Lirian, who had been on the working group since its formation and who had spent 20 years working on the practical dimensions of the reform, the ground-level work of going to institutions and finding out what was actually happening. Lirian had sat across from Hannah after the second session and talked with her for 2 hours. Hannah told Issei about this conversation that evening. "She has been doing this for 20 years, Hannah said. The kind of work I want to do. She started when the rating game reform was first being drafted, and she has never stopped." "I know Lirian's work," he said. "It is very good. She said something I keep thinking about," Hannah said. "She said the documents matter? The frameworks matter. But the documents are only as real as the people who make them real in the specific room where they are supposed to apply. And the people who make them real are usually the ones no one wrote about. They are doing it in small rooms with no audience and no record." He thought about that. "She is right," he said. "She offered to take me with her on the next round," Hannah said. "Not as a researcher. As a second presence. Learning the practice." "Are you going?" he said. "Yes," she said. "In April. 3 weeks, 6 institutions." He thought about a 17-year-old who had been thinking about this work since she was 13, and who had now found the person who had been doing the ground version of it for 20 years and was being offered the chance to learn from inside. "How does that feel?" he said. "Like the right thing at the right time," she said. "Like the way things feel when you have been building toward them, and they arrive." "They do not always arrive," he said. Honestly, because she deserved honesty. "I know," she said. "This one did." She paused. "Because I was ready when it arrived. If I had been looking for it 2 years ago, I would not have been ready, and it would have passed." He held this. The specific wisdom of it, the understanding that readiness was something you built, and that what you were ready for arrived when the building was complete. "Mama is going to want the full version of this," he said. "I know," Hannah said. "I am going to tell her tonight." "She is going to be glad," he said. "I know," Hannah said. "She will try to be measured about it, and she will not quite succeed." He smiled. "No," he said. "She will not." Hannah looked at him. She had the expression that appeared when she was about to say something she had held for a while. "You know what I think about sometimes," she said. "Tell me," he said. "The version of this where you did not come with her," she said. "The version where she walked out of the estate alone." She paused. "I know she would have been all right. She is Rias. She would have built something. But it would have been different." She looked at the garden. The document would have been different. The framework would have been different. All of it would have been different, because the thing that made it what it is was both of you together, the way you think and the way she thinks, the way they fit against each other. He was quiet. I think about that sometimes, she said, when I am working and something comes together correctly. I think, this is what it looks like when two kinds of thinking fit together in the right way. He looked at his daughter. You and Syra, he said. She thought about it. Yes, she said. Different directions, same destination. Like you said, the work needs both, he said. The work needs both, she agreed. She stood. I am going to tell Mama about Lyrian. She went inside. He sat in the garden for a while longer. The February evening was cold but not harshly so, the underworld winter doing its measured version of cold, the garden held in the bare branch quiet of the season that was waiting for spring. He thought about what she had said about the version where he did not come. He thought about how easily it could have gone differently. He thought about 5 minutes in a corridor and a jacket and the choice that had felt too immediate to be called a choice, the thing you did not decide so much as recognize. He thought, I recognized it. He thought, she asked and I already knew. He thought that was the thing about the choices that mattered. They did not feel like choices in the way you imagine choices would feel. They felt like seeing something clearly for the first time, and the seeing made the doing obvious. He had seen her clearly from the beginning. He had seen the courage and the certainty, and the fear underneath the certainty, and the specific remarkable quality of her. He was still seeing her. Every morning. Every day. He went inside to find her. Chapter 75. The temple garden in October was the 17th autumn. They came as they always came, the four of them, on a Saturday when the light was doing its particular October thing and the maples had gone to their fullest color. Hannah was 18 now. Sho was 12. The temple garden knew them as it always knew them, the paths worn into familiarity, the maple near the second gate doing its deep red thing, the stone basin where Sho had been lifted to see the water when he was very small. He stood near that basin now without needing to be lifted. He was almost exactly the height that Issei had been at 12, which Rias had noted with the amused precision of someone keeping an internal record of these measurements. They walked the paths in the way they walked them, which was not silently and not exactly conversationally but somewhere between, the easy-moving presence of people who knew each other completely, and did not need to fill the space between them. Hannah was leaving in 2 weeks. She had been offered a position in the Eastern Territories, attached to a newly established implementation office that was working on the bicultural heritage framework across a region that had been among the slowest to adopt it. Lyrian had recommended her. Sona had confirmed it. The position was hers if she wanted it. She wanted it. She had told them over dinner the previous Sunday with the same declarative directness she had used at 13 to announce the academy. The same forward lean. The same prepared quality. The same willingness to hear the response without defensiveness. They had said yes before she finished, which she had not expected. He had seen the slight surprise on her face, the recalibration of someone who had prepared for more resistance. You prepared for us to push back, he said. Slightly, she said. We raised you to do exactly this, Rias said. We are not going to push back when you do it. Hannah had looked at her mother for a moment. Then she had nodded, the small nod that meant something had landed. Now in the temple garden Hannah walked beside Rias and they were talking, not about the position or the Eastern Territories but about something smaller, something personal, the way they talked in the kitchen on Saturday mornings when the conversation was the real kind. He could hear the cadence of it without the words. He knew that cadence. It was the sound of two people who trusted each other completely. Sho came to walk beside him. She is going to be gone again, Sho said. Yes, he said. Longer this time, Sho said. Not as a complaint. As an observation. Probably, he said. The Eastern Territories are further. The work will take what it takes. Sho was quiet for a moment. Is it different when it is the work that takes them rather than school? He said. He thought about this honestly. Yes, he said. When it is school you know the shape of it. There is a fixed duration and a return. When it is work the shape is not fixed in the same way. But she is coming back, Sho said. This is home, he said. She will always come back. Sho considered this. He looked at the maple near the second gate. I am going to miss her more this time, he said. Yes, he said. So am I. Sho absorbed this. He appreciated, Issei knew, that the answer was not minimizing. That it was true. Tell me about the Eastern Territories, Sho said. The architecture. He told him what he knew, which was not as much as Sho would want but was a beginning. He described the styles, the materials, the particular way the building traditions had developed in that region separately from the Eastern District, and then merged and then separated again across centuries. Sho listened with the focused interest he brought to anything that connected to what he was learning, asking the questions that moved the information forward. They walked like this for a while. Ahead, Rias and Hannah had stopped near the stone bridge. He watched them from a distance. The way they stood together, the specific quality of it, not mother and daughter in the formal sense but two people who had built a real relationship across 17 years of choosing to be honest with each other. He thought about the kitchen conversations. He thought about Hannah's 40 pages. He thought about Rias holding her at the transit point 5 years ago, the full embrace that said, "You are ready and I am letting you go." This time was the same. The readiness and the letting go and the trust that made both possible. He and Sho reached the stone bridge. The four of them stood together for a moment in the way they stood together in this place, the temple garden doing its October thing around them, the maples at their peak, the light coming through the leaves at the angle it came in this season. Sho crouched at the edge of the bridge and looked at the water below. There is a carp, he said. There are always carp, Hannah said. This one is large, he said. Older than us, probably. Older than Papa, possibly, Hannah said. Not that old, Issei said. The garden has been here for a long time, Rias said. Some of the carp are quite old. Sho watched the carp. He had a notebook with him, he always had a notebook, and after a moment he opened it, and made a small sketch of the bridge and the water and noted the carp in the corner of the sketch with a word beside it that Issei could not read from the angle he was standing. What did you write? Hannah said. She could read it from where she was. Continuity, Sho said. Hannah looked at the sketch. She looked at the water. Yes, she said. That is the right word. He stood on the stone bridge in the 17th October and looked at the water and the old carp moving its slow patient way through the deep still pool and thought about 17 years of returning to this place. He thought about the first time, the afternoon of their first October, the way the garden had looked then, the specific light of it, Rias's face in that light. He thought the word continuity was exactly right. Not sameness. Not the refusal of change. The thread that ran through all the changes, the thing that persisted under all the seasons, the particular quality of choosing to return to the same place across the years because the place was worth returning to. They stayed in the temple garden until the afternoon began to shorten. On the way out, Hannah walked beside him. She had a maple leaf, picked up from the path, turning it by the stem in her fingers the way people turn things when they were thinking. 2 weeks, she said. 2 weeks, he said. She was quiet for a moment. I am not frightened, she said. I want you to know that. I know, he said. I was frightened when I left for the academy, she said. I did not show it because I had prepared and the preparation covered it. But it was there underneath. I know, he said. I could tell. She looked at him. You could? You over-prepared, he said. 3 pages of notes, for a conversation you had already won. You were managing something. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I did not know you could see that. I see most things, he said. I do not always say them. But I see them. She looked at the maple leaf. This time I am not frightened, she said. I know the work. I know what I am going into. I know I will be all right because I have been all right before, in conditions I did not know. She paused. But I am going to miss this. The specific shape of this. The garden? He said. All of it, she said. The house. Sho, and his notebook. Mama in the kitchen on Saturday mornings. You in the study? The old tree. She paused. I am going to miss it the way you miss things you love. Not because they are gone but because you cannot carry all of it with you. He thought about a long time ago. A train. A bag over his shoulder, and nothing else. The specific quality of leaving something behind in order to go towards something real. You carry more of it than you think, he said. You will find that out when you are there. You carried all of it, she said. Didn't you? When you left to follow Mama. I did not have anything to carry yet, he said. You are carrying 17 years. She held the maple leaf and looked at it. 17 years, she said. They will be with you, he said. All of them. She looked at him. Then she put her arm through his the way she had done since she was a small child, the specific grip of it, and they walked the last path out of the temple garden together. Rias and Sho were ahead of them, Sho explaining something about bridge construction to Rias, who was listening with the real attention. The maple trees were at their fullest color. The light was the October light. He thought 17 years. He thought, there will be more. Chapter 76. The Eastern Territories' position began in early November. Hannah left on a Tuesday, which was not as ceremonial as a Saturday would have been, and which he thought she had chosen on purpose, the practical kind of departure, the not making too much of it kind. Sho carried one of her bags to the transit point. He was 12 and the bag was heavy, and he carried it the full distance without complaint because he was Sho and because this was how he expressed things he did not have different words for. Rias drove. They did not make speeches. They were past the era of speeches. They stood at the transit point and Hannah hugged Sho first, the full hug, and Sho received it with the composure of 12 that was covering the feeling of younger. Weekly contact, he said. My schedule, she said. Obviously, he said. She hugged Rias for a long time. He watched Rias hold her, the same full-weight embrace as the Academy transit point 5 years ago, the same quality of, you are ready and I am letting you go because I know you are ready and also I will miss you every day. Then she turned to him. He held her. He thought about the transit point 5 years ago, the same ground. He thought about the girl with the risk assessment at 13, and the Academy entrance, and testimony 42, and the February presentation, and the 63 pages, and everything in between. He thought about the maple leaf on the path out of the temple garden. The work is the right work, he said. I know, she said. You are going to do it well, he said. I know, she said. I am not worried about the work. Then go, he said. She pulled back and looked at him. The winter sky eyes direct. Tell me something real, she said. Something to carry. He thought about it. The choices compound, he said. Every right one makes the next one easier to recognize. You have been making right choices for 18 years. Trust the compounding. She held this. You made a right choice when you were my age, she said. Yes, he said. That is what all of this is, she said. Yes, he said. She nodded. She picked up her bag. She looked at the three of them one more time, the full look, the kind that put a thing in the record. Then she went through. The transit closed. The three of them stood there for a moment. Sho was looking at the place where she had been. All right, he said after a while. All right. He said it to himself, not to them. The private version of adjusting to a new shape of things. Breakfast? Rias said. Yes, Sho said. And they went. Rias made eggs at the house, the full version, and Sho ate with the efficiency that covered the fact that he was not quite settled yet, and the kitchen was the three of them for the first time in several months. It was a different shape, but it was still the kitchen, and still the morning, and still the people who made the house what it was. After breakfast, Sho went to the study to work on the documentation. Issei and Rias sat at the kitchen table with the second cups of tea, the long November morning around them. She is going to be extraordinary, Rias said. She already is, he said. More extraordinary, she said. He thought about Lyrian's 20 years. He thought about Hannah and Syra and the 63 pages. He thought about what it looked like when someone found the right work and began to carry it. Yes, he said. More. Rias looked at the window. The morning was gray, which was the November version of the Eastern District, the sky before it decided what it was going to do. She told me something, Rias said. At the temple garden. Before the transit. What did she say? He said. She said, I understand now why you left the estate. Not the political reason or the practical reason. The real reason? Rias paused. She said she understood it because she had spent 18 years watching what you built instead, and she finally knew what you were building toward when you left. He was quiet. What did you say? He said. I told her that when I left I did not know what I was building toward, Rias said. I only knew what I was leaving behind. What I was building toward was what arrived afterward. He looked at her. She said that is the same, Rias said. That leaving toward the unknown is the same as leaving toward something, because the unknown is the space where the right thing can arrive. She paused. She said she understood that now because she was doing it. He held this for a moment. She is going to write about this, he said. At some point. Not the personal version. The version that can help other people understand it. I think so too, Rias said. She has been writing things down since she was small. The 40 pages were not the beginning. They were the first thing she showed us. He thought about all the years of Hannah at her desk in the mornings. All the things she had been building in the notebooks that she had not shown them, the accumulation that had preceded the 40 pages, the foundation under the foundation. She will be good at that too, he said. She will be good at everything she decides to be good at, Rias said. She is insufferably thorough. She gets it from you, he said. Rias looked at him. I am not thorough, she said. I am determined. The difference is narrower than you think, he said. She considered this. She picked up her tea. She looked at the window. The difference, she said, is that thorough is about completion and determined is about direction. I have always known where I was going. I have not always known every step of the path. He looked at his wife. Yes, he said. That is the right distinction. She looked back at him. The winter sky eyes. The particular morning version of her, the real one, the one that existed in this kitchen before the rest of the day assembled around it. Thank you, she said. For what? He said. For coming with me, she said. Still. Every day. He held her gaze. Thank you, he said, for asking. The November morning held them in the kitchen, and somewhere in the Eastern Territories their daughter was arriving at the beginning of the next right thing, and in the study their son was building the record of something no one else had thought to build, and the house was still the house, still holding the shape of everything that had been chosen inside it. Chapter 77. Sho completed the Old Quarter documentation in the autumn of his second year at 16. It was not 60 pages or 100 pages. It was 214 pages with an additional appendix of original drawings, measurements, and cross-referenced historical sources that had never been compiled in a single location before. Takawari, who had been doing this work for 30 years, reviewed it and called it the most thorough survey of the Old Quarter in the archive's history. The Historical Preservation Committee accepted it. They did more than accept it. They placed it in the formal archive as a foundational reference document, and convened a special session to discuss its implications for the incomplete preservation framework, which was the conversation Sho had been building toward for 2 years. He attended the special session. He had turned 16 the previous spring and was the youngest person in a room that contained 11 committee members, 6 civic historians, Takawari, and 2 representatives from the Eastern District Council. He sat beside Takawari and answered questions when they were directed at him, which happened more than anyone had anticipated, because the document raised questions that only the person who had built it could answer, and the committee wanted those answers. Issei attended as a co-sponsor. He sat in the back of the room and said nothing, which was correct, and watched his son in a room full of adults who were taking him seriously because he had given them something they could not dismiss. After the session, Takawari came to Issei and said, with the quiet certainty of a historian who had seen many things, he is going to change this quarter. In 20 years you will walk these streets and see what he did. Issei thought about Sho at 7 with his first model. He thought about the aqueduct system and the overflow provisions and the principle about accounting for actual conditions. I know, he said. On the way home Sho was quiet in the particular way he was quiet when he was processing something large. They walked through the Old Quarter because Sho always wanted to walk through the Old Quarter after the sessions, and the autumn streets were doing their October thing, the stones warm in the last of the afternoon light. After a while Sho said, they are going to revise the framework. Yes, Issei said. It will take time. But the documentation gives them the foundation. Like the testimony section, Sho said. You need the real thing before you can build the right argument. He looked at his son. Hannah taught me that, Sho said. From what she said about your work. And from the 63 pages. You cannot argue for a framework on abstract grounds. You need the specific. The actual. The documented. Yes, he said. That is exactly right. Sho walked for a moment. I documented it because it was worth documenting, he said. Not because I was planning a framework argument. But when I had the documentation I could see what it was for. That is also how it works, he said. You do the right thing without knowing yet what it enables. And then it enables what it was always going to enable. Sho considered this. The choice is compound, he said. He stopped walking. Sho looked at him. Hannah told me, he said. That you told her that at the transit point. She said it in one of the weekly calls? She said it was the most useful thing you had ever said? He stood in the old quarter in October. 2 children who had taken what he had tried to give them and were already carrying it forward, already saying it back to him in their own voices in the contexts of their own lives. Yes, he said. The choice is compound. I thought about it while I was finishing the documentation, Sho said. The last 6 months were very difficult. I kept finding gaps in the record and having to go back to the archive, and the gaps kept producing new questions, and the new questions kept requiring more work. And I thought, every time I answered a gap correctly it made the next answer more possible. The compounding. And when you did not answer correctly? He said. Then I had to revise, Sho said. Which also compounded, in the other direction. But the net direction was forward because I was paying attention. He looked at his son, 16 years old, 214 pages of the right work behind him, already understanding the structure of the thing. You are going to do something very good with this life, he said. Sho looked at him. I know, he said. Not with arrogance. With the same quiet factual certainty he brought to statements about water systems and seasonal variance. The understanding of a person who had tested themselves and found the result. They walked home through the old quarter in the October afternoon, 2 people who understood each other in the particular way that accumulated across years of saying true things. The stones of the old quarter held the afternoon warmth. The buildings that Sho had documented stood the way they had stood for centuries, patient and specific and full of the history that someone had now recorded correctly for the first time. He thought the buildings deserved that. The being seen correctly. He thought everything did. Chapter 78. The Eastern Territories' work took Hannah 3 years. She came home for the Temple Garden every October, which was the condition she had set for herself, and for Sho's birthday every spring, which was a different kind of condition, the private one. She came home for the Gremory estate visit in August and for the winter break in December, and occasionally for no reason at all, the unscheduled returns that happened when the work reached a natural pause and home was where she wanted to be. In those 3 years she and Syra completed implementation assessments at 19 institutions, produced 4 formal reports, contributed to 2 rounds of framework revision, and developed a set of assessment tools that the working group formally adopted as the standard methodology for the next implementation phase. The assessment tools were built from the ground up, not derived from anything that existed before, which was the thing that made them useful. Lirian retired in the 2nd year of Hannah's Eastern Territories work. She retired to a small house in the Southern Territories and sent Hannah a letter that said, among other things, I have been looking for someone to do this work correctly since I began. I believe I have found her. Do not rush. The work will be here as long as there are people who need it, which is longer than either of us will live. Hannah read this letter to Issei during an October visit, sitting in the garden on the stone bench, the maple trees at their peak. She retired? He said. She is 64, and she has been doing this for 30 years, Hannah said. She has earned the rest. What did you feel when you read it? He said. She thought about it. Responsible, she said. Not in the heavy sense. In the right sense. The sense of, this is mine now. The carrying of it. Is that frightening? He said. No, she said. It is clarifying. He thought about the quality of that answer. The specific maturity it represented, the understanding that responsibility was not a burden placed on you but a shape you grew into when you were ready for it. She was 20 years old, and she had grown into it in the time it had taken to grow into it. Lirian is right, he said. I know, she said. She has been right about most things. She paused. She said something else in the letter? What? He said. She said, the work you are doing is not the same as the work I did. It is better. Not because you are better than me but because you are starting from where I finished. You have the foundations I spent 20 years building. You can build higher because you are standing on something real. He held this. She is very generous, he said. She is accurate, Hannah said. There is a difference. She is not being modest. She is describing how it works. Each generation starts from what the previous one built. She looked at the garden. Which means the work is cumulative. Which means it matters even when the results are slow. He thought about the 32 pages on his desk. He thought about Sona's preface. He thought about 27 to 15, which had been a decade ago, and about the 96 testimonies, and about the implementation coordinator provisions that were now functioning in 11 institutions. It is cumulative, he said. I thought about you and Mama when I read it, she said. What you built with the reform document. You were building on what came before and leaving something for what comes after. I am the what comes after. He looked at her. And show, she said. His documentation will be the foundation for the preservation framework, and the preservation framework will be the foundation for what comes after him. It compounds. He thought about show at 16 in the old quarter on an October afternoon. The choices compound. We did not plan that, he said. When we were building. We were not thinking about what we were leaving. I know, she said. But it is what you were doing anyway. Because you were doing it right. She looked at him. That is the thing about doing things right. The forward effect is there whether you plan it or not. He sat with that for a moment. You are going to write about this, he said. I already am, she said. He looked at her. I have been writing something for 2 years, she said. Not a report. Not a methodology document. Something else. She paused. I do not know what it is yet. But I know it is about this. About what the work is and how it moves and why it matters. And about the people I come from, because the people I come from are part of the argument. Will you show us? He said. When it is ready, she said. The way I show you things. When the foundation is complete. He nodded. The October garden held them and the maple trees held their color, and somewhere in the house Rias was probably in the kitchen, and Sho was probably in the study, and the old tree was doing its patient thing in the corner of the garden. He thought about what she had said about doing things right and the forward effect. He thought about an October morning, a long time ago. He thought that was the beginning of the forward effect, that morning. Everything since was the compounding. He was glad they had done it right. Chapter 79. Rias published her book in the spring of the year Sho turned 17. It had been in progress for 5 years, which was how long it had taken to write something that was both honest and useful, which were 2 qualities that were easy to have separately and very difficult to have simultaneously. She had written it in the early mornings in the kitchen, which was where she had always done her private work, and she had shown it to Issei in stages, not because she needed his approval but because he was the person she thought most clearly alongside. It was not a political document. It was not a memoir. It was something that existed between those categories, which was the category it needed to exist in to say what it had to say. It was the honest version of what she had learned across 30 years of doing the work, written for people who were in the earlier parts of the same work and needed the honest version rather than the official one. The first chapter was called The Corridor. Not because she announced it, but because the first thing she wrote about was a morning in October, and a choice that had not felt like a choice because it had been too clear to call by anything other name. She wrote, I did not leave because I was brave. I left because the alternative was to become someone I could not be, and I had enough clarity in that moment to know it. Clarity is not the same as courage. Courage is what you need when you are not certain. Clarity is what you have when you see the thing as it actually is, and the seeing makes the doing necessary. She wrote, I asked someone to come with me. He came. What followed from that is the subject of everything I have done since, not because the following was inevitable but because it was chosen, day after day, and the choosing made it what it is. Issei read the finished version on a Thursday in February, alone in the study, and he read it from the first page to the last without stopping. When he finished he sat with it for a long time. The book was very good. It was better than good. It was the version of her that had been accumulating for 30 years, the clarity and the determination and the specific quality of her intelligence, all of it given to saying something true in a way that could be useful to people who needed it. He went to the kitchen. She was at the table, waiting. Not anxiously. In the way she waited for things she had done correctly and wanted to hear. He sat across from her. It is the best thing you have written, he said. She held his gaze. The corridor chapter, he said. Yes, she said. You wrote what it was actually like, he said. Not the version that makes you look certain. The version that makes you look clear. There is a difference, she said. Yes, he said. Certain is what you perform. Clear is what you have. You wrote the clear version. She looked at him. The part about asking someone to come with you, he said. Yes, she said. You wrote, I asked. You did not write. I was lucky he came. You wrote, he came. She was quiet for a moment. I could not write the lucky version, she said. It would have been dishonest. You did not come because I was lucky. You came because you chose to. Your choice is part of the truth of it. He looked at her across the kitchen table. Thank you, he said. It is accurate, she said. Thank you for that too, he said. She picked up her tea. She looked at the table. She had the expression that appeared when something was complete in the way she needed it to be complete. I want Hannah to read it before it publishes, she said. She will want that too, he said. And Sho is 17, she said. He is old enough. He has been old enough for several years, he said. Yes, she said. But the book was not finished. He thought about Sho at 10 on the garden steps asking about the document. He thought about the principle about building correctly the first time. He thought about 17 years of a boy who had been paying attention and building the record of things that deserved to be recorded. He is going to understand all of it, he said. I know, she said. I wrote it knowing he would read it eventually. And Hannah. And whoever comes after them. She looked at him. I wrote it for them. Not only for them. But they were part of who I was writing for. He thought about that. The specific act of writing something true for the people you loved, knowing they would find it, and carry it forward. It will compound, he said. She looked at him. She smiled, the real one. Yes, she said. It will. The book published in May. It was not a popular book in the sense of wide early readership. It was the kind of book that moved through specific communities, passed between people who needed it, and built its readership the way Honest Things built theirs, by word of those who had found it useful. By the autumn of that year it was in its third printing. By the following spring it was being used in 3 academic programs as a supplementary text for courses on reform methodology and institutional change. By the time Sho finished his documentation project and presented it to the Preservation Committee, Rias's book was in its 7th printing and had been translated into 4 languages and was cited in 11 papers on the bicultural heritage framework and its implementation. She had not written it to be cited. She had written it to be true. It was cited because it was true. He thought that was the correct order of operations. Chapter 80. The 18th October. They came as they always came. The 4 of them. The temple garden doing its particular thing with the light. But this year there was a 5th. Hannah had come home from the Eastern Territories' work at the end of the summer, which had been expected. What had not been expected, at least not by Issei, was that she had come home with Saira, and that the quality of Saira's presence at the kitchen table and in the morning conversations and in the garden in the evenings had a new specific quality. Not the quality of a colleague or even a close friend, but something that had developed beyond both of those into something that had its own name, and that Hannah had finally given it the name when she sat with Issei in the garden one September evening and said simply, "Saira and I are together." He had looked at her. She had the quality of someone who had been carrying the real version of something for a while and was now showing it, not to ask permission but to share it because sharing it with the people who mattered was part of what made it real. "How long?" he said. 2 years, she said. In the quiet sense. 6 months in the named sense. Is she staying? He said. We are figuring out the shape of it, she said. She has her own work, and I have mine. We are not in a rush to decide the structure. We are building it the way things are built correctly. From the foundation, he said. From the foundation, she said. He had told Rias that evening. Rias had said, I thought so. 2 years ago at the October visit I thought so. He had said, you did not say anything. She had said, it was not mine to say. He had said, true. And then they had left it at that. The way you left things that were Hannah's to carry until she chose to put them down in front of you. Now Saira was in the temple garden in October, and she walked the paths with the quiet precision that was native to her, taking in the place with the same quality she brought to a new institution, observing without performing. Sho had taken to her immediately, which was not a surprise because Sho took to precise people, and she had taken to him with the genuine interest she brought to things that were actually interesting, which Sho demonstrably was. At the stone bridge Sho crouched to look at the water. The same carp, he said. You cannot know it is the same carp, Hannah said. The size and position suggest it, he said. That is not the same as knowing, she said. It is the same as having good evidence, he said. Syra was watching this with the expression she wore when she found something pleasing that she did not want to overannounce. He is exactly how you described him, she said to Hannah. I described him accurately, Hannah said. You did, Syra said. Issei stood on the stone bridge and looked at the water and the carp and his children and the person his daughter had chosen and the afternoon of the 18th October, and thought about all the versions of this place he had held across 18 years. He thought about the first time. The afternoon light and the maples at their first peak and Rias's face in that light. He looked at her now. She was watching Hannah and Syra with the particular expression that appeared when something she had hoped for had arrived in its right form. Not triumph. Not relief. The quiet satisfaction of someone watching the world be what it should be. She looked at him. He held her gaze. In her face was everything. The corridor. The train. The apartment and the dissolution and the long careful building of the life and the two people who had grown inside it, and the autumn light on the stone bridge of the temple garden in the 18th year of everything that had followed from a choice on an October morning. She came and stood beside him. He put his arm around her. 18 years, she said. 18 years, he said. Syra, she said quietly. She is good for Hannah, he said. Hannah chose well. She always chooses well, Rias said. She learned it early. He thought about the kitchen and the honest conversations and the risk assessments, and everything that had been given so that both children would know what choosing well looked like. She did, he said. On the bridge Sho was now explaining to Syra the specific features of the temple garden stone construction, which she was listening to with complete attention, and Hannah was standing beside both of them with the small private expression she wore when Sho was doing something she was glad to watch. The maple trees were at their peak. The light was the October light. The carp moved in the deep pool below the bridge. I want to stay here for a while, Rias said. We can stay, he said. Not forever, she said. Just a while. As long as you want, he said. She leaned against him. They stood on the stone bridge in the 18th autumn and held the moment the way you held things that were finite and full, knowing they were both. Everything was still in motion. Hannah's work in its next chapter. Sho's documentation and the preservation framework and the 214 pages that were going to matter for a long time. Rias's book in its 7th printing, finding its way to the people who needed it. Sona's working group still building, still refining, still making the frameworks real. The implementation coordinators in 11 institutions doing the daily work of making policy into practice. All of it still moving, still becoming, and this. The still point of it. The temple garden in October and 5 people on a stone bridge and 18 years of the life that had been built from the right choice made in the right way at the right moment. He held his wife and watched their children and did not look away from any of it. Chapter 81. Sho turned 18 in the spring of the year that Issei and Rias turned 40. The coincidence of the 3 birthdays in the same season had always been a kind of recurring joke in the house. The spring pile up, 3 cakes and 3 sets of candles in the space of 6 weeks. But this year the coincidence had a different weight because 18 was a threshold and 40 was a threshold, and they arrived together in a season that was already the season of arriving. Issei turned 40 on a Tuesday, and he sat in the garden that morning with his tea and thought about what 40 meant. Not in the abstract sense, not the cultural accounting of it, but the specific personal version, what it meant to be this age inside this life. He thought he was the person he had meant to become, which was not a thing he had known how to mean at 20. At 20 he had been in the process of becoming without knowing toward what. At 40 he looked at the becoming and recognized it as what he had been moving toward, the person who had built this life with this person, and raised these children in this house and made these arguments in these rooms for these frameworks that were real and in the world now. He was 40, and he was exactly where he should be. Rias came out of the kitchen with her own tea and sat beside him in the garden. 40, she said. Yes, he said. She was quiet for a moment. She had the morning quality, the undressed for the day version of her, the real one. I do not feel 40, she said. I feel like the person I have always been, but more of it. That is what 40 is, he said. More of the person you have always been. Some people find that frightening, she said. The more of it. I know, he said. They were not happy with the original version. She looked at him. Are you happy with the original version? There was no original version, he said. There was only the becoming. He paused. But yes. The becoming has been good. She leaned against him in the morning way. The becoming has been very good, she said. They sat there until Sho appeared at the kitchen door in the early morning state of a teenager not quite committed to being awake, looked at them, said happy birthday again, and went back inside to make the breakfast he had announced the previous day he was going to make. He made it very well. The eggs and the toast and the fruit, the full version, set on the table with the precision of someone who had been practicing for 7 years. He served Rias and Issei, and then served himself and sat down with the expression of a cook checking the result. The eggs, he said to Rias. Perfect, she said. The heat management was better than last time, he said. I adjusted the opening temperature. You always adjust, she said. You always have to adjust, he said. The conditions are never exactly the same. He looked at his son across the breakfast table. 18 years old. The sane, focused quality he had always had, more complete now, more certain, the version of him that had been built across 18 years of becoming. What are you going to do? Issei asked. After the summer, Sho had been accepted to the architectural history program at the Underworld's premier research institution, which had been the goal since he was 15 and which he had worked toward with the same methodical patience he brought to the documentation. The acceptance had arrived in February, and he had received it with the equanimity of someone who had done the work correctly, and was not surprised when the work was recognized. The program, he said. And I want to continue the documentation work. The old quarter is complete, but there are 2 adjacent districts that have the same gaps in the historical record. I have been corresponding with Takawori about the methodology. You have been corresponding with Takawori about a new project since before you finished the current one, Issei said. The current one was finished, Sho said. The work itself was not finished. There is always more work. He thought about Lyrian's letter to Hannah. The work will be here as long as there are people who need it. Yes, he said. There is always more work. Are you frightened of it? Sho said. He asked it in the way he asked things that were genuine, directly, without framing. The new project? He said. The continuation, Sho said. More years. More work. The compounding going forward from here. He thought about this honestly. No, he said. I find it clarifying. Knowing there is more to do gives the day its shape. Sho considered this. I feel that too, he said. I thought it might be specific to me. The needing the work to give the day its shape. It is not specific to you, he said. Good, Sho said. He picked up his fork. Then it is reliable. Rias was watching this exchange with the expression she wore when she was memorizing something. After breakfast, Sho went to the study and the morning continued, and the spring outside the kitchen window was the full version, the season fully committed to being itself. He washed the breakfast dishes and Rias dried them, and they stood side by side at the kitchen sink in the morning quiet. He asked you if you were frightened, she said. Yes, he said. He was asking because he needed to know it was all right not to be, she said. Yes, he said. I know. He is so much like you, she said. He thought about this. He thought about Sho's directness and his methodical patience, and the way he worked from the inside of a thing outward, learning it by living in it. He is himself, he said. Some things came from me. More from you. Most of it is entirely his. The overview of the 3 of them, she said. You, him, Hannah. What overview? He said. You built frameworks, she said. Because the existing ones were wrong and someone had to build the right ones. Hannah is living inside the frameworks, making them real in the specific rooms where they need to be real. Sho is building the foundation the frameworks are built on, the record and the history and the documented truth of things that no one had stopped to document correctly. He stood at the kitchen sink and held this. The 3 of us together, he said. The 3 of you together, she said. Different directions, same destination. Like Hannah said about herself and Syra. And you? He said. I wrote the honest version, she said. The book. So people who were at the beginning would have what we did not have, which was someone who had done it before telling them the true shape of it. He looked at her. The four of us together, he said. She smiled. The real smile, full present. The four of us together, she said. He dried his hands. He put his arm around her in the kitchen morning and held her. Outside the spring was doing the spring things. Inside the house was the house, exactly what it had been built to be, exactly what it had become. 40. He would take it. Chapter 82. Hannah and Syra moved to the Southern Territories in the autumn of Hannah's 21st year. Not permanently. The way nothing in this life was permanent in the fixed sense, everything in motion, everything becoming. But for the duration of the next phase of the work, which was the establishment of a regional implementation office that was permanently staffed and funded and had an institutional mandate, which was a thing that had not existed anywhere in the Southern Territories and which required people to be present for the building of it. They had been asked to lead it. They had accepted. Issei drove them to the transit point on a Sunday afternoon, just him, because Rias had a working session that could not move and because Sho was at the research institution and because sometimes departures needed to be a smaller ceremony than other times. Hannah sat in the front seat with the particular quality of someone who was between two things, the ending of the current and the beginning of the next. Syra sat in the back with her organized quiet, the quality Issei had come to know over 3 years of her being present in the house, the economy of her, the way she held her own space without taking others. At the transit point Issei embraced Hannah. You are ready, he said. I have been ready since February, she said. The logistics took until now. I know, he said. I am still saying it. She pulled back and looked at him. The winter sky eyes with everything in them that had been growing there for 21 years. Tell Mama I will call tonight, she said. She will be waiting, he said. He turned to Syra. She was not a person who initiated formal expressions of things. She was the person who showed what she felt through the quality of her attention and her presence. He had learned this about her, and he had found he respected it. He put his hand out. She took it. She held it for a moment with both of hers, which for her was the full version. Take care of each other, he said. We are very good at that, she said. We have been practicing. He smiled. Yes, he said. I know. He watched them go through the transit point together, the easy way they moved beside each other, the specific quality of two people who had learned the shape of each other and moved in the world accordingly. He stood there for a moment after the transit closed. He thought about all the transit points. The train station 20 years ago. The academy. The Eastern Territories. Now this. He thought about the quality of watching someone you loved become more completely themselves with each departure and each return. The specific joy and specific ache of it. He thought that was what parenting was, the long practice of holding and releasing, the full embrace and the letting go, the trust that the person you were releasing was built to be released. He had watched Rias do this with her parents. He had watched it change shape over years from the rupture of the original leaving to the rebuilt thing it had become, the trust restored across time. He had done it with his own children across the transit points. He had seen it in Sona's working group, the way she held the junior researchers and then released them when they were ready. It compounded. The holding and releasing compounded. Each generation that was held correctly released correctly, and released their own correctly. He stood at the transit point and thought this was the most important thing he had learned. Not the arguments, or the frameworks, or the documents. The holding and releasing. The specific practice of loving someone enough to let them go. He drove home. Rias was at the kitchen table when he came in, the session finished, waiting. How was it? She said. Right, he said. Both of them. The way they moved together. It was right. She looked at him. You stood there after they went through, she said. Yes, he said. How long? A while, he said. She got up and came to him and held him in the way she held him when he needed holding without having said so, the fluency of 20 years of knowing him. I know, she said. I know you know, he said. They stood in the kitchen in the autumn evening and held each other. Outside the old tree was doing its October thing, the leaves at their turning, the season at its midpoint. The house was quiet in the way it was quiet when both children were elsewhere, a different quiet than the busy quiet of the full house, the other version, the one that had its own rightness. Sho is coming for the weekend, she said. I know, he said. He wants to show us the new documentation methodology, she said. He sent a description this morning. It is 11 pages. Of course it is, he said. She made a sound that was almost a laugh. Our son, she said. Our son, he said. They went to make dinner together in the kitchen that had been the kitchen of this life for 20 years. And the cooking was the comfortable kind, the practiced kind, two people who knew the kitchen and each other completely. He thought the quiet of the house was not absence. It was fullness of a different kind. The kind that came after a long time of building something and finding it was built. Chapter 83. The 21st October. They came as they had come for 21 years. But this time the 5 of them had become 7. Sho had brought someone. He had mentioned this in September with the characteristic directness of the family, sitting at the kitchen table after a working weekend and saying, I want to bring someone to the October visit. Her name is Mira. She is a historian attached to the Central Archive. I have been talking to her for 8 months. I think you will find her interesting. Rias had said, we will be glad to meet her. He had said nothing, because Sho had told them exactly what they needed to know and the rest would arrive in October. Mira was a small precise woman in her mid-20s with the organized quality of someone who worked in archives, the person who lived among documents, and knew how to read them. She observed the temple garden with the attention of a historian, noting things he would not have noted, understanding the age of the stones by the quality of the weathering, identifying the period of certain garden features from the style of their construction. Sho walked beside her and their conversation was the kind that moved between two people who had found each other intellectually, the quick exchanges of people who did not have to explain the vocabulary. Hannah watched them from a distance with the small expression she wore when something was exactly what it should be. Syra stood beside Hannah and said something quietly and Hannah nodded. Issei walked with Rias and did not say anything because there was nothing to say that the occasion was not already saying for itself. At the stone bridge, all 7 of them. The carp in the pool below. The same large one, or the one that was doing a convincing impression of it. Mira looked down at the water. The garden is older than the temple, she said. The water features are pre-period. The temple was built around what was already here. I did not know that, Sho said. It is in the archive, she said. I found it in the secondary records. The garden's water system is one of the oldest surviving examples in this region. Sho looked at the water with new attention. You should have led with that, he said. I just did, she said. Hannah caught Issei's eye. The small expression present. He looked at Rias. Rias was watching Sho and Mira with the expression that meant a great deal was being held with great warmth. He thought about the 1st October at the stone bridge, just the 2 of them, the maples at their first peak, the early version of the life they were going to build. He thought about all the versions since. The children who had arrived into the life and grown inside it. The people who had been chosen and brought to this place because this place was worth bringing people to. 7 on the bridge. The water below, older than the temple. The maples at their 21st peak. Papa, Sho said. He looked at his son. The water system, Sho said. The original channels. I want to find them in the record and add them to the documentation. You are expanding the documentation again, he said. The scope was too narrow, Sho said. I should have included the water systems from the beginning. I will go back. You always go back when you find something you missed, he said. The foundation has to be complete, Sho said. Otherwise what you build on it is uncertain. Mira was looking at Sho with the specific look that Issei recognized from a long time ago. From the quality of looking he had given to Rias in the earliest days, the look that said, I see you and I find you remarkable. He thought about what it meant to see someone clearly and find them remarkable. He thought that was the beginning of everything real. Then go back, he said to Sho. I will, Sho said. He looked at the water. After the visit. Of course, he said. After the visit. The October afternoon held all 7 of them and the temple garden was its fullest self and the maples were at their peak and the stone bridge was as old as it had always been, patient and real. He held it. He thought about all the years of holding this and about how holding it had not diminished it, had not worn it to a familiar thing that no longer required attention. It had deepened. Each year in this place had added to what the place contained, so that standing here now in the 21st year was standing in 21 Octobers simultaneously, all the versions layered beneath the current one, all of them present. He thought he would never stop finding this worth returning to. He thought that was the finest kind of continuity. The kind that deepened rather than faded. The kind that was worth all the years of choosing. Chapter 84. The book found them in unexpected places. This was the thing about Rias's book that they had not fully anticipated, the geography of it, the way it moved through communities and arrived in the hands of people they had never met, who sent letters or called the publisher or found their way to Sona's working group because the book had told them something they had needed to hear. 2 years after publication, Rias received a letter from a woman in the Northern Territories who had read the book 3 times and who ran a small household that had been navigating the bicultural heritage framework with mixed results, and who wanted to know if there was someone she could speak to about the gap between what the document said and what the institution in her region was doing in practice. Rias passed the letter to Hannah. Hannah went to the Northern Territories the following month. She came back with a new testimony and a new institutional assessment, and a new entry in the regional implementation record. This became a pattern. The book finding people. The people finding the working group. The working group responding. Rias had not designed this. She had written the book because it was true. But truth had its own distribution logic, and the distribution logic of this particular truth was that the people who needed it found it, and then found the work it had grown from, and then became part of the ongoing effort. Issei watched this happen and thought about what it meant for a single act to have a long forward shadow. The corridor had been one moment. The book had grown from the life that had grown from the corridor. The book was now producing new momentum in the work that had grown from the life. He could not trace all the lines. He could see the pattern. He was sitting in his study one evening when Rias appeared in the doorway. "There is someone who wants to meet us," she said. "The letter writer?" He said. "No," she said. "Someone who read the book and then read the reform document, and then read the bicultural heritage framework, and then wrote to Sona to ask about getting involved in the working group." She paused. "She is 17. He looked up. "Her name is Yuki," Rias said. "She is from a bicultural heritage background, first generation in her family. She found the book in her school's library. She wants to do what Hannah does." He was quiet. "Sona wants to know if we are willing to meet her," Rias said. "Not to recruit or commit to anything. Just to meet." He thought about Professor Yashima using the testimony from the 3rd hearing as a case study in 3 semesters. He thought about Lyrian's letter. He thought about the 49 testimonies becoming 96, becoming the regional assessment record. "Yes," he said. "Of course." Yuki came on a Saturday in November. She was 17 and precise and slightly guarded in the way people were guarded when they were uncertain whether a room would receive them, the careful posture of someone who had learned to assess rooms before fully entering them. She sat at the kitchen table and Rias made tea, and she looked at the kitchen with the specific attention of someone who was memorizing it without meaning to. "You read the book," Rias said. 3 times, she said. "The first time I did not fully understand the corridor chapter. The second time I understood it. The third time I understood why it was the first chapter." "Why is it the first chapter?" he said. She looked at him. She assessed whether this was a test. She decided it was not. "Because the corridor is where the choice is made," she said. "Everything else in the book is what the choice produces. If you start with what the choice produces, it looks like it arrived from nowhere. If you start with the choice, you understand that it was always available. That the choosing is always available." He held this. "Yes," he said. "That is why." She looked slightly relieved, the unwinding of the careful posture. "I want to do this work," she said, not as a plea but as a statement of fact. "I know I am 17 and I am not ready yet. I know I need to build the foundation first. But I want to know that the work will be there when I am ready." "The work will be there," he said. "It will be there for longer than any of us can work on it." "That is not discouraging?" she said. "No," he said. "It is clarifying. The work will be there. Your part of it will be there. You do not need to do it all. You need to do your part well." She thought about this. "What was your part?" she said. "The first argument," he said. "The one that established that the thing was wrong, and here was the evidence, and here was what should replace it. I built the framework. Someone else is making it real in the rooms where it needs to be real. Someone else is building the historical record it rests on. The parts fit together. My part was what I was equipped to do, and what am I equipped to do? She said. I do not know yet, he said. You do not know yet. You find that out by doing the work and seeing what you are good at and what matters to you. Those two things, where they overlap, that is your part. She was quiet. She was putting this somewhere careful. After a while she said, the book says that the choosing is always available. Does that mean anyone can choose? Yes, Rias said from across the table. She had been quiet for several minutes, letting it develop. Anyone can choose. What the choice requires is clarity about what you are choosing and what you are choosing away from, and the willingness to live with the consequences of the choice. The choosing is available. The consequences are also available. You take both. Yuki looked at Rias with the full attention of someone receiving something they have needed. Both, she said. Both, Rias said. The corridor chapter is not only about the leaving. It is about knowing that the leaving has a cost and choosing anyway because the alternative has a higher cost. Yuki was quiet for a long moment. I have a corridor, she said. Not elaborating. Just naming it. Everyone does, Rias said. Eventually. What do you do when you reach it? She said. You have already told us what you do, he said. You found the book. You wrote to Sona. You came here on a Saturday in November. You are already past the corridor. She looked at him. The relief was a different quality now, the substantive kind. I am already past it, she said. Yes, he said. She was 17. She was past her corridor. She had the entire rest of it in front of her. He thought she was going to be excellent. He thought Hannah would find her and recognize something. He was right on both counts. Chapter 85. Sona retired from leading the working group when she was 53. She did not retire from the work. She moved to a different form of it, the consulting and advisory role, the one that allowed the people she had been mentoring for years to take the work forward without her weight at the center of it. She said at the retirement gathering, which was held at the Eastern District building that had been their shared institutional home for 20 years, that she was not leaving the work but stepping back from the position so that the work could continue to grow past what she could give it. She said it with the precision she brought to everything. Afterward, in the garden of the building, Issei stood with her alone for a moment. The autumn evening was doing its particular thing, the last of the light, the trees in their October version. You train the people who will do it better than you, he said. That was always the goal, she said. If I had not trained people to exceed me, I would have failed at the most important part of the work. Hannah, he said. Hannah and Syra and now Yuki and the others, she said. They are going to carry it further than I could have. Because they started from where I finished. She looked at the trees. You knew that would happen. 20 years ago you knew the work would outlast us if we built it correctly. I hoped, he said. You were more certain than that, she said. You built with the certainty even when you expressed it as hope. He thought about this. Yes, he said. I suppose I did. That is one of your qualities, she said. You build as if the outcome is certain, which makes it more likely to be certain. And then you express it with appropriate humility so that the certainty does not become arrogance. He looked at her. Is that what I do? It is what I have observed for 20 years, she said. Yes. He was quiet for a moment. When did I correct on the 14 disagreements? He said. Your count was 9. Rias's count was 9. My count was 6. She looked at him. I have been keeping the real count, he said. I would like to know. She was quiet for a moment. 8, she said. I was correct on 8. You were correct on 6. Rias was closer, he said. Rias is usually closer, Sona said. That is one of her qualities. He smiled. Yes, he said. She looked at the trees for a moment. It has been a good 20 years, she said. Yes, he said. I was not certain it would be, she said. When we started. The rating game reform felt impossible from the inside. I was not certain we had the right arguments, or the right people, or the right anything. But we had the right argument, he said. Yes, she said. Eventually I trusted that. It took me longer than it took you. No, he said. You trusted it before I did. You walked into that first coalition meeting with 3 sharp questions that saved the original framework from 2 significant errors. That is trust in the argument. She considered this. I trusted the method, she said. I was less certain about the outcome. That is the right thing to trust, he said. The method. The outcome follows from the method if the method is right. She was quiet for a moment. The work will go on, she said. Better than when we were in it. Yes, he said. Because we built it to outlast us. She nodded. She looked at the building, the stone of it, the specific stone of a building that had held 20 years of the work. Good, she said. Simply. Then she said good night and went to find Rias, and he stood in the garden alone for a moment. He thought about 20 years of Sona across the table. The first coalition meeting. The long sessions in the kitchen. The documents and the hearings and the votes. The preface she had written without telling him. The working group. 20 years of the right work done by the right people. He thought it was one of the great things of his life, that work. The specific privilege of it, to be allowed to do the thing that mattered with people who were capable of doing it. He was grateful for all of it. He went to find Rias. Chapter 86. The 25th October. They came as they always came. The temple garden doing its thing with the light. This year it was not 7 on the bridge but 9. Sho and Mira had married in the spring. The wedding had been in the eastern district, in the garden of the house, which had been Sho's choice and which Issei had not expected but which had felt, once it was chosen, entirely correct. The old tree had been in full spring color, and the garden had held the people who mattered, and the ceremony had been the real kind, the kind built from the people in it rather than the name attached to it. Mira was 3 months pregnant and not showing yet, which only the family knew, which was the right number of people to know at 3 months. Sho had told Issei in the way he told everything important, directly, at the kitchen table, with the specific factual quality of someone sharing information of consequence. You are going to be a grandfather, he had said. Issei had been quiet for a moment. Yes, he had said. I suppose I am. Are you all right? Sho had said. I am very all right, he had said. Good, Sho had said. I thought you would be. Now Mira walked the temple garden paths in October, and she had the quality of someone who was carrying something and knew it, and was quiet about the knowing, the early stage quiet of a person who had not yet named the thing to the world but was living with it internally. He watched Sho walk beside her with the attentiveness he brought to things he was protecting without making a performance of the protection. Hana and Saira walked ahead of them. Yuki had come this year for the first time. She was 21 and had completed her first full year with the working group, and Hana had brought her the way Lyrian had once brought Hana, the invitation into the real thing extended by the person who had been invited before her. Yuki walked with the qualities she had had at 17 but fuller now, the careful posture replaced by an earned ease. She had found her part of the work in the first year, the part that overlapped what she was good at, and what she cared about, and the finding of it had given her the assurance of someone who knows where they are. Rias walked beside Issei. 9 people on the path in October. 25 years, she said. 25, he said. She looked at the garden with the specific quality she had when she was seeing all the layers of a thing at once. I was 23 the first year, she said. 23 and just beginning, he said. Not beginning, she said. I had already been beginning for months. The October visit was the first time I allowed myself to feel that we had started. That it was real. He thought about the first October. The maples and the light and the particular relief of a day that was nothing but the two of them and the garden and the stillness of a life that had found its first true footing. When did you know it was going to hold? He said. She thought about it. The temple garden, she said. That first October. I looked at you in the light here and I thought, this is what the real thing looks like. Not the arranged version. The chosen version. And the arranged version was so different. He said. The arranged version never felt like it was about the people, she said. It felt like it was about the house and the name, and the continuation of something that existed before either of us arrived. We were instruments of it, not the point of it. He thought about the Phoenix arrangement. He had only ever known it as the thing she had left. He had never asked her what it had felt like from inside. The point of the chosen version, she said, is the people. You are the point. I am the point. Everything else, the house and the work and the life, is what grows from the choosing, not what the choosing is for. He held this. That is the corridor chapter, he said. Yes, she said. I wrote it 20 years after the first October, and I could not have written it without the 20 years. But the understanding was there at the beginning. Incomplete. Not yet language. But there. At the stone bridge they stopped, the 9 of them, the way they always stopped here. Mira looked down at the water. The original water channels, she said. Showed me the documentation. This is one of the oldest surviving garden water systems in the region. You told me that at the 21st October, he said. I tell him everything twice, she said. He absorbs it differently the second time. Sho looked at her with the expression he wore when she said true things about him. The second time is for the details, he said. Yes, she said. The first time is for the fact. The second time is for the meaning. Yuki was listening to this with the attention of someone storing things. Hana was watching Yuki with the attention of someone watching a person become more of themselves. He stood on the stone bridge in the 25th October and felt all of it at once, the weight and the warmth and the specific quality of 25 years of returning to this place with more people each time, more life added to the accumulation, more of the compounding made visible. He thought about Rias at the estate on an October morning, 26 years ago. The bag over her shoulder. The corridor. He thought about standing at the window and watching her go and then going after her. He thought everything. All of it. Every October and every argument and every framework and every transcript and every kitchen morning and every transit point and every document and every vote and every person who had come to the table because the work was there and the work was real. All of it from that corridor. All of it from the choosing. He looked at Rias. She was looking at the water. Then she looked at him. In her face was the same thing that had always been in her face, the thing he had recognized from the beginning, the thing he had come with her to find, the specific clear quality of a person who was entirely herself, entirely present, entirely real. He thought, I would do it again. He thought, I would do it every time. She held his gaze. She smiled. The October light came through the maple trees at the angle it always came, in this season, in this place, at this hour. 25 years. All of it still going. All of it still becoming. All of it worth every single step of the choosing and the building and the staying. Chapter 87. Myra's daughter was born in the winter. She arrived in December, in a hospital in the Eastern District, delivered in the early hours of the morning while the city outside did its quiet before dawn thing, the streets nearly empty, the sky the particular dark of very early winter morning. Issei and Rias were in the waiting room. Hana was there. Syra. They sat in the waiting room with the particular quality of people who were holding vigil together, not anxiously exactly but with the specific alert attention of people who are on the side of a door and know something important is happening on the other side. When Sho came through the door his face had the quality of someone who had just seen something that had changed the arrangement of everything. He looked at them. He did not say anything for a moment. He was not someone who was often without words. He looked at his father and his mother, and his sister and Syra, and he stood there with everything rearranged, and the new arrangement visible in his face. She is here, he said. Is she well? Rias said. Yes, he said. She is very small and she is well and Mira is well. He looked at Issei. She is so small, he said. Again. Not because he had not said it. Because it was the thing that required saying twice. He thought about Sho at 18 months, held for the first time, the specific weight and warmth of him. He thought about the thing he had tried to describe to himself then, and had not had language for, the absolute specificity of a new person, the way they arrived already entirely themselves, the whole of the person there in the smallest version. Yes, he said. They are. Sho looked at him for a moment longer. Then he said, Do you want to come? They went. She was in Myra's arms when they entered, the very small version of herself, in the white of the hospital room with the early morning dark outside the window. Mira was tired and entirely present, the quality of someone who had done something large and was now on the other side of it. Rias went to Mira first. She sat beside her and looked at the baby with the expression he recognized from 25 years ago, the one that was complete, the one for which there was no name except complete. What is her name? Hana said. Sho and Mira looked at each other. Yuki, Mira said. We decided in September. Before we knew about the other Yuki. She paused. We thought it was fitting anyway. He thought about Yuki at 17 at the kitchen table. The corridor chapter and the book and the 17-year-old who had found her way to the work and was now doing it. He thought about the name moving forward through the accumulation. It is fitting, Rias said. Hannah was looking at the baby with the full weight of her attention. She is entirely herself, Hannah said. Already? Yes, Mira said. She has been herself for the whole 9 months. Very specific about everything. She is a Hyoudou, Sho said. We are specific. Mira looked at him with the expression she wore when he said things that were exact and required no addition. Issei stood at the edge of the room and looked at all of it. His son and his son's wife and the new person in the room who was entirely herself, the newest member of the accumulation. His daughter with the full attention. Rias with the complete expression. He thought about all the rooms in which the adding had occurred. The kitchen in the Tokyo apartment in the 1st October. The hospital room when Hannah arrived and then when Sho arrived. Every room since. Now this. He thought, it goes forward. He thought, this is what going forward looks like. He moved to stand beside Rias. She looked up at him. He looked at the baby, Yuki, very small and entirely herself in her mother's arms. Hello, he said. Quietly. To her specifically. She did not respond, being 8 hours old and occupied with the fundamental work of being in the world. But she was there, which was the whole of the response needed. She was there. Everything was still going forward. Chapter 88. The book went into its 15th printing the year that Issei and Rias turned 45. This was the year that the bicultural heritage framework had been in operation for a decade, and the implementation coordinators were now present in all 47 of the institutions covered by the original document, and the regional offices had been established in 6 territories, and the working group had grown from 8 members to 23. And the supplemental provisions had been revised twice to incorporate what the implementation experience had taught them. Sona produced a 10-year report. It was 40 pages and precise, and it documented what had been built, and what remained, and what the next decade would need. He read it. He found 3 things he would have done differently, which he told her. She agreed with 2 of them and argued him out of the 3rd, which she was right to do. The year that Rias turned 45, she gave a lecture at the Central Underworld Institute. He attended. He sat in the 3rd row, which was close enough to see her face clearly and far enough back to see the room. The room held 200 people. He knew perhaps 40 of them. The rest were people who had come because of the book, or because of the work, or because of the lecture series that the Institute ran on reform methodology. She spoke for an hour. She spoke without notes, which she had been doing for 15 years, the work having long since moved from argument she was learning to argument she was. She spoke about the honest version, which was the version that acknowledged that reform was slow and imperfect and often moved in 2 steps forward and 1 step back and required the people doing it to be able to hold the imperfection without being defeated by it. She spoke about the corridor, not the specific corridor. The principle of it. The moment at which the person inside the arrangement that does not serve them recognizes that they can leave. That the leaving is possible. That the cost of staying is higher than the cost of going. She said, the corridor is always available. The difficulty is not the availability. The difficulty is the willingness to recognize what you are looking at when you are standing in it. Because standing inside a framework that does not serve you, you have often been taught to believe the framework is correct and you are wrong. The work is to recognize that the framework can be wrong and you can be right, and to act on that recognition. She said, this is also what the bicultural heritage framework is for. Not just to provide legal protection. To say, formally and on record, to every person who is living in the gap between frameworks, the gap is not your fault. The gap is the system's failure. You are not an edge case. You are a person the system failed to account for. And we are accounting for you now. The room was very quiet. He sat in the 3rd row and looked at his wife speaking in front of 200 people with the full clarity of someone who had been doing this for 25 years and knew why it mattered and was saying so precisely. He thought about her at 23 in a corridor. He thought about the train and the apartment and the 1st October and all of it since. He thought, there she is. The person she had always been, given the full space to be it. After the lecture a young man came up to her with a book. Her book. He asked her to sign it. She signed it. He showed her the spine, which was worn in the way books were worn by frequent reading. 14 times, he said. She looked at him. I read it 14 times, he said. The corridor chapter. I have been in my corridor for 2 years and I did not know what to do, and then I found this and I understood. She held the book in her hands. What are you going to do? She said. I am going to choose, he said. I came here tonight to be certain I could. And now I am certain. She gave him back the book. Good, she said. You can. You already are. He nodded. He went. She stood there for a moment with the quality of someone who had been given something. Issei came to stand beside her. She looked at him. He is going to be all right, she said. Yes, he said. You told him he could. He already knew, she said. He needed someone to confirm the knowing. He thought about Hana at 20 asking him to tell her something real. He thought about Sho at 18 asking if he was frightened. He thought about Yuki at 17 in the kitchen asking if anyone could choose. The confirming of what people already knew, underneath the doubt. You are very good at that, he said. She looked at him. The 45-year-old version of her, all the years in her face as presence not as age, the quality of someone who had lived correctly and had the living in her. So are you, she said. They went home. The Eastern District was the late evening version of itself, the streets quiet, the old quarters lights in the windows of the buildings that Sho had documented, the buildings that had been here for centuries and would be here after them. He put his arm around her and they walked home through the streets of the life they had built. Chapter 89. The 30th October. He woke that morning with the particular quality of a morning that has been anticipated, not anxiously but with the warm specific weight of something you have been looking forward to. 30 years. The number had a roundness to it that was not meaningful in itself but that gave the day a natural occasion for accounting. He lay in the first light and thought about 30 years. He thought about all the versions of October they had had. The first one with just the two of them, and the new beginning quality. The years when the children were small and they walked the paths slowly for the pace of small legs. The years when the children were older and walked with their own quality, beginning to have their own relationship with the place. The years with Saira and Mira. The year Yuki came. Last year, 29, with young Yuki at 7 months old, Mira carrying her, the maples looking down at her for the first time. This year young Yuki would walk her first steps of the path. Not steadily. She was 13 months old and walking was still mostly a negotiation between intention and balance. But she would be in the temple garden for the 2nd October. He looked at Rias beside him. She was still asleep. The morning version of her, the face in the first light of the day. He thought about 30 years of mornings. Not every morning in the same place or the same form, the accumulation of all the versions, the apartment mornings and the Eastern District house mornings and the mornings in the estate on visits and the mornings of the children and the mornings of the work and the ordinary extraordinary mornings that made up the substance of a life lived together. He had woken beside this person for 30 years. He was going to keep waking beside her. There was nothing more to say about it than that. It was the whole of the thing. She opened her eyes. She looked at him. 30, she said. 30, he said. She was quiet for a moment, looking at him in the first light. The same, she said. And not the same. Both, he said. Both, she agreed. They lay there in the morning for a while. The house was quiet, which meant Hana and Saira had not yet arrived, which meant the day had not yet officially begun. What do you want? She said. From today? He said. From any of it, she said. From whatever comes next. He thought about this. He thought about what 48 felt like from inside, which was the same quality he had described to Sho at 40, more of the person you have always been. He thought about the work that was ongoing, the implementation coordinators and the working group and Hana's regional office and Yuki's first full project and Sho's documentation of the adjacent districts. He thought about the book in its 15th printing. He thought about young Yuki who would walk the temple garden paths today for the first time. This, he said. More of this. For as long as it continues. She held his gaze. That is the right answer, she said. I know, he said. It took 30 years to arrive at it simply. I knew the version of it for a long time. The simple version is new. The simple version is the complete version, she said. You need the full complexity first, and then the simplicity is available. Yes, he said. She looked at the ceiling for a moment. Then at him. I want the same thing, she said. More of this. The work going forward. The people going forward. The temple garden in October. She paused. You. He held her gaze. Yes, he said. Me. She smiled. The real smile, the full present one, the same smile he had first seen in a corridor 26 years before everything that had grown from it. Good, she said. Then we are agreed. We have been agreed for 30 years, he said. About this specifically, she said. Yes. He took her hand. She held his. They lay in the first light of the 30th October morning and held the day before it began, the way you held things that were finite and full, knowing they were both. Chapter 90. The temple garden in the 30th October held 11 people. He counted them on the path, not because he needed to count but because the number mattered, the specific accumulation of it. 11 people in the garden he had first walked with one other person, 30 years ago, in the first October of the life they had been building. Hannah was 48. No. He corrected himself. Hannah was 31. He was 48. He sometimes misread the number, the way the years played tricks on you, making your children's ages feel like your own. Hannah was 31 and had been in the Southern Territories for 10 years and had come home for every October without exception, which was the private covenant she kept with this place, and with the people who had first brought her here. Syra was 32 and walked beside Hannah with the ease of 10 years of shared work and shared life and the specific quality of two people who had long since stopped performing anything for each other. Sho was 27 and walked with Mira and young Yuki, who was negotiating the path with fierce concentration, both hands occupied with the serious business of walking on stone that was not entirely level. Mira had a second child in mind, she had told them in August. Not yet. But in mind. The idea of it. The space being held for the next arrival. Yuki, the other Yuki, 24 now, was on the path with someone she had not yet introduced formally, a young man from the Northern Territories who worked in the implementation office, who walked with the quality of someone who was being received by an occasion he understood the significance of. His name was Daisuke. He had been mentioned in the weekly calls from the Northern office for 3 months. He was here now, which was the next thing after being mentioned. Issei watched him navigate the day with the precision of someone taking it seriously, which was the right response. He thought about himself at 20, at a manor house, taking an occasion seriously that he had not yet understood the full significance of. He walked beside Rias. She was watching young Yuki on the path, the small determined figure negotiating each stone. She is going to make it to the bridge, Rias said. Yes, he said. She is very focused. She is a Hyoudou, Rias said. She will document the path before she is 3. He smiled. They walked behind the small figure, who was making her determined way forward with the absolute commitment of a 1-year-old who has decided to do a thing. Sho walked just behind her, not intervening, letting her navigate, watching with the attentiveness he brought to things he was protecting without performing the protection. At the stone bridge young Yuki stopped. She looked at the water. She looked at it for a long time, with the full attention of a person who has never seen this particular thing before, and is giving it everything. Then she pointed. Fish, she said. Clearly. Unmistakably. Sho crouched beside her. Yes, he said. Fish. They have been here for a long time. Fish, she said again. Confirming. Fish, he agreed. She kept looking at the water. The carp was there, the large old one, doing its slow, patient thing. Older than us, Hannah said from behind, the echo of a conversation on this bridge from another year. Sho looked at her. Probably older than Papa, he said. Not that old, Issei said. Young Yuki was still looking at the fish. She was not done with the fish. The fish was a fact she was establishing in herself, the first time of a thing that would be here and all the subsequent times she would stand on this bridge and look at this water. He thought about first times. He thought about the first October, this garden, this light, the maple trees and the stone path and the bridge and Rias's face in the October light. He thought about 30 years of returning to a thing that was worth returning to. He crouched beside young Yuki. She looked at him. She had her father's eyes, Sho's eyes, the specific quality of them, the focused attention. Fish, she said to him. Yes, he said. Fish. They have been here since before I came here. They will be here when you come back next year. She looked at the water again. He did not know how much of that she understood. Probably not all of it. But the word again was in there, the concept of return, and something in her expression suggested it had landed somewhere. He stood. Rias was beside him. She had been watching. She will come back, he said. Every year, Rias said. If we do this right. We will do this right, he said. We have been doing it right for 30 years, she said. I do not see why we would stop. He looked at her. The October light on her face, the full deep October light of the 30th year. He thought about the first time he had seen her face in this light. He thought about what he had recognized in it, not yet having the words for the recognition but having the recognition itself, complete. He thought, there it is. Still, after 30 years. The same thing. More of it. Rias looked at him. She had the expression that contained everything, all the years and all the seasons and all the choosing and all the building and the life that had been made from the right decision made in the right moment, and held through everything that had come after it. 30 years, she said. 30 years, he said. Worth it? She said. He looked at the 11 people in the temple garden. The young woman negotiating the stone bridge for the first time. The son who had built the record of things that deserved to be recorded. The daughter who had carried the work into the rooms where it needed to be real. The people they had chosen and who had chosen them. The old carp in the deep pool. The maple trees at their 30th peak. He looked at her. Every second, he said. She put her hand in his. He held it. The October light came through the maples at the angle it always came at this hour, in this season, in this place. All 11 of them in the garden that had held all the Octobers. All of it still going. All of it still the choosing. All of it worth every second of every year of every morning of every decision that had accumulated into this. The 30-year version of the life built from the right choice made in a corridor on an October morning a long time ago. He held her hand. He was exactly where he was supposed to be. He was going to keep being here. That was the whole of it. That was everything.